Hello, everyone, and welcome to round number 1 of the 2019 Glass Blown Open from the MPO side. Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, along with Robert McCall. Robert, 3 in the afternoon or 3:10 Central Time. We're ready for some sweet action out here at the Country Club.
Yeah, it's beautiful outside. Absolutely beautiful. Hardly anyone to speak of whatsoever, which is a rarity here in Kansas.
Yes, it is.
So, I think we're going to see some crazy scores today.
We are. Well, Johnny V's got the whole preview thanks to Dynamic Disc. Let's take a look. Robert, walk us through it. Walk us through this par 5.
Yeah, first hole is the longest hole on the course by quite a long shot, 1,093 feet. This is actually playing as one of the easiest holes relative to par for the MPO field today. Most of them are just going to throw something into that golf fairway. If you end up on the left side of the fairway, that's usually better. It allows you to throw a hyzer up over the hill, set yourself up kind of near this 250 marker that we're flying up on right now to throw an approach up to the basket. The biggest arms could consider getting aggressive and playing for 3, but I think we'll see a lot of birdie 4s here today, as we've seen 46% of the field take birdie 4 so far, then 32% taking par. So relatively easy way to start, albeit a long one.
Well, some people are already asking, what is the course record out here? We're about to see it.
Yeah, we're about to find out. I guess right now we haven't played this exact layout.
So Joel Freeman,
all-new course record. Yeah, he's sitting at an 11 under right now, 54.
All right. Well, Joel Freeman, and we're getting right to it with Paul McBeth here on the tee of hole number 1.
Yeah, this is a force from McBeth, hyzering toward the path, but got some pretty nice grass over there to keep you safe, and he's gotten a long ways down there. That should be a pretty easy 4 from there.
And reigning champion of the 2018 Glass Blown Open, Eagle McMahon. Very special event for him, as we kind of saw him break into the scene just a few years ago, actually right here on SmashBoxxTV.
That's right. This looks to be a PD2 for Eagle. He plays the big wide hyzer because for him that's a shot he can get pretty much just as much distance out of as most people on their kind of straight low shots. Yeah, that's a great result.
Next up from San Diego, California, AJ.
Next on the tee, we've got AJ Risley, one of my personal favorite guys. He's staying at my house this week, so I guess I have to say that.
If you don't, he'll rob you blind.
That's right. AJ unleashing on that disc and then showing a little bit of excitement, as AJ has been known to do from time to time. That is way up there. I think he's probably still out of Eagle 3 range, but he's set up very well to get that birdie 4.
Latitude zone, Johnny McCray.
Pretty sure that was an enforcer for AJ, and this is a giant for Johnny McCray. And this is beautifully thrown for Johnny. Center cut in the fairway. 4 fantastic tee shots for our featured card today.
It's something that you would expect, actually. Just these 4 players are all obviously so good. Robert, do you know exactly how the card was assembled? I mean, obviously we have Eagle McMahon as your reigning champion, so that makes a lot of sense. But we have a diversity in terms of the sponsorships. I'm not sure if there was a fan vote or if this was just kind of handpicked and assembled accordingly.
Right. No, this was not a fan vote. We just decided who was going to be on there. I think it's a no-brainer for Eagle to be on there as the past champion. I think you would be, I don't know, wrong if you didn't say that Paul McBeth is probably the most exciting player to watch right now.
Yep.
And then, we've got fan favorite AJ Risley, and then a veteran of the game who's played well out here before, Johnny McCray. He's won his Masters World title out here on these courses. And so, just trying to get a good, like you said, diverse feature card to start off with.
It is great. Well, we have Joel Freeman, who plays for Team Innova. We have him sitting right now as the outright leader of the tournament. He shot an 11 under. I believe he had 13 birdies out here on the course to shoot that 11 under. He's already in the clubhouse. Cale LaVisca shot 8 under. He just came in sometime in the last half hour or so, as we're seeing him sitting at 8 under par. And then Austin Hannum Jamie Espinoza, both sitting at 7 under. All very good scores. I have a feeling, I think we're going to see at least 2 of our players off this card reach that double digits.
I think so. I would love to see that. And I'm excited for Joel. That's an awesome round. I don't know if that makes the lead card.
Yeah, wow. Well, there are a lot of good players still out there. Paul McBeth here lining up his shot, trying to determine if it's him that's out or possibly someone else on the card. Oh, Paul's great. He sometimes helps out and lets us know when cameramen are out of position or need to go somewhere else. He's always been really good about that, actually.
Here's Eagle McMahon lining up what looks to be a pretty big flex forehand over the... Oh, not a flex forehand, just a hyzer forehand over the hill. Smooth, controlled shot. That's a great result for McMahon there. Won't be close enough likely to really card the Eagle 3, but should be in a great position to give it kind of a half run and take an easy 4. McBeth looked like he got quite a bit of that one. Really leaned into it, trying to get down near the green for sure.
Something we only experienced on hole 14 earlier this morning. There's a little bit of jitter. There's a huge crowd that's out there. More people are coming out there. We're going to see if we can make sure we get all of the stream as smooth as possible here. AJ Risley lining up his second shot.
And this is one of those enforcers that AJ always talks about. This is lovingly entitled Mango. That's a controlled hyzer for AJ. Like we said, we are having some cell signal issues with our second camera, but it looks as if that's landed in a good spot, leaving AJ a relatively short approach to the basket.
And who would have guessed that Johnny McCray, who's old enough to be at least the father of a few of our players,
Right.
Johnny McCray with the long drive here in the group.
Yeah, if you haven't heard much about Johnny McCray, you should pay a little bit better attention. This guy's got game, and he can still play with the best of them. You can tell that's just a controlled shot from Johnny, not trying to bite off too much, just find himself in the fairway, make sure that he doesn't find any out of bounds so that he can guarantee his birdie 4.
And just for a moment, can we talk about that gallery that's out there right now? This is a Wednesday afternoon.
That's right.
Don't you people work?
Yeah, that's right. Now, this is day 1, and it looks like we're probably at... There were probably 100 or 150 people out there at the start of the round. I think as these guys get farther into the round, more people finish. I think we're going to see that gallery grow quite a bit.
Well, we're glad you guys could join us. Of course, we're in Emporia. We're at the Emporia Country Club, who will play host to us all weekend long. And we are here for 4 rounds this year, as opposed to the 3 that we've seen in years past, or sometimes less than 3, barring some rainouts that we've seen. But we will
It's
be
a sore
here.
subject, okay?
Okay. Hopefully we don't have to bring it back up, but we will be here all weekend and excited to do so. Of course, every morning we'll have FPO footage, as many of you tuned in this morning. Over 2,000 of you tuned in to watch the FPO coverage this morning, and we'll be back in the afternoon each and every day.
Can't wait to bring you guys the action from out here. I think we're going to see, like we said, scoring conditions are, almost perfect right now. Hardly anyone to speak of. I think we're going to see some pretty ridiculous scores out here. And I'm personally really excited to see how the new changes affect the MPO card. It seems like the FPO players were, generally affected by some of those changes. Hole 9 being a notable example, hole 8 as well. So we'll see how these guys can manage. Looks like AJ's found his way into just some of these low bushes here on the right side of the fairway. And we're going to see a rarity. Now, we don't see forehands from AJ hardly ever, especially not right-handed forehands, but AJ is actually a left-handed guy. He writes left-handed, throws right-handed. He can throw a pretty decent left-hand forehand, and we may just get to see that from him right here. AJ is not that far from the basket.
Besides AJ getting into position, we see Paige Pierce in position. And she's out there with a camera capturing some shots.
That's a turnover forehand that just caught that tree and fell down for AJ. Tough spot. And it looks as if he was standing, or pardon me, positioned right next to that 250-foot stake. So he still had quite a ways to go.
McCray with a single step.
Nice spike hyzer in, well inside the circle. Great approach by McCray. So we see AJ's forehand attempt just fell short. Here's his approach over the bushes. That's a good shot. 15 feet or so, not bad. After two fantastic shots, here's Eagle McMahon for a long jump putt, maybe 120 feet or so to lay up for his birdie 4. Wow. That's a pretty powerful jump putt.
Eagle keeping everything in control and check here on this first hole. This is McBeth throwing his third shot. And putting it right underneath the basket. So he's looking at opening up his glass blown open with a birdie as well.
Just like you said earlier, look at that gallery. That's already a great gathering for our first day of competition here.
It is. We are out here on a Wednesday afternoon, 3:22 in the afternoon. I just confirmed we're looking at about 70 degrees right now. Very light winds, almost none to really even speak of, especially when you're considering that we're in Kansas normally. I don't know at what mile per hour do you guys even mention the wind?
Oh, it has to be about 10 or 15 for us to say, man, it's kind of windy out.
Oh, and AJ not off to a good start here. That one splashes in and out. Is low on the left side. Hopefully AJ can calm his nerves here so he can get past hole 1. And I say that because on the FPO side, we saw many of our FPO competitors struggle on the very first hole, knowing there's plenty of golf left. We watched some of them overcome it very quickly and then move on and have a great round. Katrina Allen, I believe, even opened with a bogey, and she went on to shoot the FPO leading 4 under during the first round.
That's right.
Spoiler alert, sorry.
Oh,
mentioning
yeah.
First round.
Sorry about that.
FPO.
We see AJ is in for bogey and all of our other competitors in for birdie to start our round here. Moving over to hole 2, we've got a new tee pad, which is off of the cart path. That makes the shape of this shot quite a bit more difficult, as players used to be able to throw a little bit straight and just move it to the right at the end. This is a very committed anhyzer off the box, out of bounds fairway on the left, out of bounds tall grass on the right. a good tee shot will get you into the middle of our fairway and leave you maybe 300 feet or so looking up to the basket with either a forehand approach or a backhand hyzer around those trees near the basket. We do have a runaway green behind to out of bounds, maybe 40 feet behind the basket. So this hole is actually playing almost a half stroke over par, only 17% of the open field taking birdie here so far today.
Well, hopefully some of them will take a few of those bullet points and take those ideas to town so that we can get adjusted and get them under par here for a hole number 2. When we're looking at a 4-day event, a 4-round event, how do you think people go out and pace themselves? And whether that's an expenditure of energy or focus or whatever that is, how do you feel like people maybe conserve or don't?
Man, it's hard to think during this first round that our players aren't thinking, man, I have to score, I have to get out in front. I think as far as their energy goes, I think they're giving all that they've got and then just rest the entire rest of the day. I don't think they're doing a whole lot after the round is over with.
Paul McBeth, not quite enough air underneath it for him to get the full flex out of that, but he will find himself safe and inbounds. Looks like Eagle's going to go with a different approach, going with a forehand.
Yeah, that was a force for Paul McBeth. I think this is a DD3 from Eagle. I'm not 100% on that. Yeah, with the ride that it's getting, I think that is a DD3, and that's beautifully placed for Eagle. He'll have a similarly shaped shot, although a slightly shorter one for his approach to the basket.
We are not going to see a forehand by McCray.
No, we are not. This is a TP giant for Johnny McCray. This has a great angle, working back to the middle of the fairway, and that is crushed.
Oh, Johnny McCray showing the young guns how it's done.
Last on the tee will be AJ Risley. I believe this is one of our new Dynamic Discs Raiders. AJ's gotten good angle on this as well. Wow, and I think that's flown right up next to Johnny's. 2 fantastic tee shots from Risley and McCray here.
Dymax is a process where we can take just about any image and put it on a disc.
Can we Dymax our love?
Well, yeah, we can Dymax that. Find out more about all the things that we can put on a disc at dynamicdiscs.com/Dymax.
Welcome back, everyone. Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, along with Robert McCall. Robert, have they given you any new titles over here at Dynamic Discs lately?
No new titles, just same old one as before.
Which is?
I'm the team director for Dynamic Discs, Latitude 64, and Westside Discs. So I take care of the sponsored players from all 3 companies. And then when I'm not doing that, I do some Disc Golf Answer Man and commentary and, yeah, some media stuff, things like that. They're both, I'd say, pretty good.
I would say you wear a lot of different hats, but you would never cover that beautiful hair.
You know what? I bought my first hat the other day.
Wow.
Yep. I was playing golf. It was extremely windy. And I said, you know what? I don't want to mess with this right now. So I now own 1 hat. But most of the time, yeah, no hats. Forget that, man.
No, why would you? Well, Paul McBeth is getting ready here. It looks like he's got a caddy on the bag. I can't quite tell who that is. Sometimes we see players that have consistent caddies week in and week out. Sometimes we have players that say, you know what, almost anybody that wants to can come caddy for me. Paul is usually pretty selective about who we see on the bag.
Yeah, I think that's Joey Tamale, one of the cameramen from Parsave Productions, and
excellent,
someone who's helped out with some Disc Golf Pro Tour stuff as well. Paul McBeth has played the wide hyzer, and Even though he was the shortest on the fairway, I think he's put his second shot maybe around 20 feet. That's excellently played.
Eagle trying to come up with a visual for where he's trying to place this next shot.
And not surprising, after going forehand off the tee, not surprising to see Eagle go forehand here as well. It is certainly the more accessible side of the green. I think this is an FD3 from McMahon. Tracking beautifully. That's it's pretty close to a drop in there.
Last night we were also gifted, blessed, maybe that's a better word, blessed to have the pro panel of which you emceed. Thank you very much. That was great.
Thanks. I enjoy that stuff.
It was great to see and hear from our pros and get a little insight. Some of the questions were a little more personal. Some were very disc golf related. Some weren't. It was become one of the things that we expect here at the GBO, and it seems like everyone really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's one of the highlights of my week for sure. Here's AJ Risley throwing a Warden for his approach, and that's great touch. Having to crest that hill with something that isn't high speed because the Warden is a putter, that's just really great distance control. We saw both Paul and Eagle take more of that high-speed driver, so multiple ways to attack this hole, as we see Johnny is going to take a shield for this approach as well.
Johnny going a little bit wider than even we were possibly expecting there. So someone needs to keep track of this stat. I don't think UDisc is able to do it right now, but we're at the Country Club, one of the longer courses that we'll find here in 2019 on the tour, and we are 2 for 2 with Johnny McCray,
being the longest drive.
The longest drive.
Yeah.
And Eagle McMahon's on the card.
Right, and McBeth and Risley, they're like, none of them are distant slouches.
No, so very impressive to see. Johnny McCray a few weeks ago while playing down in Tallahassee, he kind of fought through some gout injury or something of that nature, a gout flare-up, I guess is the terminology for it. And he performed very well during the first round or two and then ultimately fell off just a little bit at the end. So I know he's been battling that. It looks like he's on full road to recovery. He actually withdrew from the Arkansas event just a couple weeks ago as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So hopefully he's all good to go. It looks like he's come out doing just fine. I saw him out here actually practicing in the rain yesterday, him and his wife. And right now he seems to be off to a good start. Let's see if he can go 2 for 2 on the birdies.
It's well done by McCray as he's in for his birdie 3. It should be noted that McMahon is probably not playing for full distance on the shots that he threw, but still, it's interesting to see Johnny being the longest drive so far, a couple times.
I don't care if a hole was 210 feet.
Yeah, if
I outdrove McMahon exactly. Because I went 250 and he went 209, I would still mark that down in my book as outdriving Eagle McMahon.
Yep, you know what? That's exactly right. I doubt Johnny has said anything to him, though. I bet they're keeping it professional right now.
That doesn't sound like fun.
That's going to be an all-star birdie for our competitors today. Excellent way to start out on one of the holes that's playing over par today. Moving over to hole 3, 489 feet downhill. It does not play like 489. I think the effective distance is more like 380 or 390. This hole is playing at a 3.2 scoring average, and players are either going to take a big forehand on the outside of the left side trees. They can take a fairway drive or a mid-range down the middle, just something that'll hold straight and just push to the right. And if the wind is right, there's a big hyzer out around all the trees over the cart path, which is out of bounds. Certainly a risky play, but a good way to get close to the basket if you've got that sort of distance. We haven't seen a whole lot of birdies here today. Only 9% of the field taking birdie so far. Lots of pars, 68% in fact taking par.
Wow. It sounds as if you almost are doing the research on those numbers yourself, but you're not.
No,
We have to give credit where it's due.
No, I did this research
All
personally.
right, that's right. You did click.
Personally
Well,
via UDisc Live.
if you want to do some clicking of your own, you can follow along. You can see so many statistics and details about what's happening here at the tournament. We can tell you that hole 3 is playing as the 7th most difficult hole on the course after 140 people have played it, and the average for the hole is 3.2 on a par 3, and as you just said, 9% birdies. All of that information is provided to us by our friends over at UDisc. So udisclive.com is a good place to go, and you can see all of that for yourself. Only 1% of the field right now has been listed as parked, and
that's just 2 players. So
that's just 2 of our players. Meanwhile, 4% have found circle 1 in regulation. That's inside that 10-meter circle.
Looks as if McBeth is debating on throwing the big hyzer over the cart path.
See as if the wind is possibly just pushing a little bit at his back.
Yeah, maybe the slightest bit of left to right, but with an overstable enough disc and a high enough shot, that shouldn't be a problem whatsoever. Oh, he actually goes kind of the low route.
And this is dangerous because
This is
he's
very
gonna need a
dangerous.
skip.
He needs that to skip. I don't think it hit that spectator, but it looked like it might have. Either way, McBeth is going to be out of bounds and only maybe 100 feet off the tee pad.
Wow, very risky move. We talk a lot about just how thick that grass is on various parts of the course. Obviously, they're playing that ball and stick kind of golf out here from time to time, and they manicure the fairways, and they worry about the length and just how much that's going to hold. And that disc, I knew as soon as he released it that low that there would be very little skip. And Paul McBeth is out of bounds here on hole 3.
Yeah, that certainly had some work to do from the outset. Eagle McMahon has brought the long out of bounds into play. You hardly ever see that on this hole, and on a forehand hyzer, mind you. I'm nearly positive that was another DD3 or cloud breaker, as Discmania calls it, and Eagle's making those look pretty solid. This looks to be a Saint Pro from Johnny McCray, so this is going straight down the middle. Just clipped the branch in front of him. That branch has killed the dreams of many a disc golfer over the years.
And this being one hole, McCray was not hoping to outdrive Eagle McMahon, as McMahon's gone deep of the pin. And he's the only one looking at birdie at the moment.
Looks like AJ Risley is lining up the hyzer as well, but I expect that this will be a higher route. AJ has certainly gotten a hold of it. This is traveling over the out of bounds, needing to work back quickly. And it has not done so. That's going to be out of bounds in a similar spot to McBeth.
They landed no more than 15 feet apart. Let's take another look at Paul McBeth's drive.
And in fact, we were wondering if that had hit a spectator or not. It did not.
It did not.
Yeah.
So just either too low or too wide, depending on how you want to look at that. I think I've been called worse in my life. But either way, McBeth not in bounds. AJ Risley also not in bounds. And I love how aggressive that play can be, but just as we saw there, they got really burned by that shot.
That is the definition of a risk-reward shot out on this course. Those discs are probably pin high, and if the cart path wasn't playing out of bounds, they would be 40 feet or so from the basket. But as it stands, they are out of bounds, and this is McBeth throwing his third shot, approaching the basket with one of his zones. It's a little bit wide. It looks like that'll be around circle's edge left of the basket. AJ Risley considering his options here. He does have another huge hyzer out over the cart path. This one is admittedly an easier one than the one he just threw because the angle isn't so obscured from where he is. But there's still the inherent danger of throwing over OB nearly all of the flight path.
And as you mentioned earlier, Risley not as comfortable with a righty forehand shot as some of our other competitors, so that's why he's opting for the backhand. He's throwing over the OB right out of his hand.
Yeah, this is a criminal from AJ. And it hasn't stayed over the OB hardly at all. He took it kind of low under those branches. That will be inside the circle for his putt for bogey 4. We want to thank you guys so much for tuning into the live stream today for our first round action here at the 2019 Dynamic Disc Glass Blown Open. If you haven't done so already, we would greatly appreciate if you'd like and share the live stream out today. We'd love to get some more people watching live disc golf, as right now we have almost 2,900 viewers watching together right now. We hope and expect that number will increase as the week goes on. But if you're tuned in right now, we thank you so much for spending your workday with us. After hitting that early branch, here's McCray approaching the basket. That'll be in relatively easy par, maybe 15 feet or so. Got McMahon approaching his shot. There is some OB long, although most people don't concern themselves with it here. And McMahon is even closer than we had assumed from the beginning of the hole. Looks like he's inside the circle. Putting with P2s, this would be for 3 birdies in a row.
And more so, McMahon would be looking at possibly taking 2 strokes from McBeth and Risley. Solid putt by McMahon. What a great start.
Yeah, and I think the camera angle here is playing tricks on us a little bit. That looked like about a 40, 45 footer, but from the side I think that was closer to 30. Either way, it's in for 2, and McMahon is off to a perfect start. And Risley struggles continue to start the round as he's gone bogey, birdie. This will ultimately be a double bogey 5 for AJ Risley to start out his 2019 GBO.
And Paul McBeth is able to recover after the poor tee shot, so he's going to walk away with the bogey 4. So it looks like we're going to have a straight here on hole number 3. We've got the 2 by McMahon, the 3 by McCray, the 4 by McBeth, and Risley tapping in for the 5.
If this was Yahtzee, someone would be excited, but alas, there's a couple of people who aren't very excited about taking 4s and 5s here.
We're through 3 holes. Let's take a look at the hole number 4. A par 3 at 423 feet.
Yeah, playing as the 4th easiest hole on the course for our MPO competitors today. We've had 30% of our field, 42 players carting the birdie 2 here. OB is in that bit of fairway that's past the little ditch to the right and then cart path to the left. This is a relatively routine hyzer for most of our players. It's a comfortable distance that I think effectively is 400 or so to the basket with the downhill playing into consideration. If you're not landing inside circle 2, you're not really excited about your drive here. We've had 58% of the MPO field inside circle 2 and then 26 inside circle 1.
Well, this is what many would consider a must-get at really, I know it sounds 423 feet. You wonder, well, why is that such a must-get birdie? But when you're talking about players of this caliber and with these skill sets, this is something they're walking up to, like you said, and just kind of expecting to at least have a look at that birdie putt.
That's right. And this is one of, I think, only 6 holes that's playing under par for the field right now. So this is certainly an opportunity for them to strike and card a valuable 2 out here. There are not that many 2 opportunities out here if you're not on top of your game. I think, well, from these players, we could see something as controllable as a fairway driver coming out to reach this basket.
All right, and speaking of controllable and 2s and birdies, I think I saw Chris Dickerson shooting himself up the leaderboard. We'll check in with you, Disc, and keep an eye on that. Chris Dickerson, one of the gentlemen that I certainly picked to perform well here this weekend on Disc Golf Answer Man. And it looks like he has started out getting 7 birdies in the first 8 holes. So Chris Dickerson just on fire right now.
As is Ricky Wysocki, who is sitting at 6 under through 6 holes.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good, too.
That's also a good start. Here's McMahon letting loose on a big hyzer. Kind of leaning to the left, waiting for it to get back. He has gone long of the basket.
Again.
Yep. 35 feet or so. I'm not sure if that was a PD2 or a PD from Eagle, but both relatively overstable drivers. Here's a giant from Johnny. You see him start that on hyzer, get a little flip up to flat, riding straight toward the basket. And that is inside the circle, 25 feet away. I believe this is a force for McBeth. McBeth taking that wide hyzer route to control his distance, working in toward the green. Not much skip to speak of, as it looks like he's settled just behind the tree that's on the right side of the basket from the player's perspective. It is inside the circle, but he'll have a little bit of a distraction.
You saw McBeth not overly enthused with his effort there.
Yeah, just not getting the skip that he expected right there. Last to tee is AJ Risley. It's looking like he wanted that to be a little bit flatter on the release. That is skipping toward the out of bounds, and that has ultimately finished out of bounds.
And AJ Risley's struggles will continue. Let's take a look at a word from our sponsor in Dynamic Discs.
We wanted something that really appealed to disc golfers as well, but that wasn't too heavy. So this beer here is going to be light, clean, easy drinking, a little hop characteristic to it, something you can keep drinking all day long.
This collaboration, though, is a brand new one where we actually worked with Dynamic Discs, which was a lot of fun, and Walnut River Brewing, who's some of our oldest friends in the brewing industry. So yeah, it's just a brand new experience, brand new beer. It's our first beer ever to be in cans, which is really exciting. Yeah, it's been a cool experience just to kind of show how everybody can work together.
Welcome back, as we are now with AJ Risley, who's going to be trying to save his par. Looks like he's within range for doing so. Is he maybe just inside the circle?
That looks about right. Looks as if he's just outside the circle, as you can see the 10-meter flag right there. And if you know anything about AJ Risley, you know that he loves this distance and loves running these down when he converts them. And just low for AJ. He's laughing that miss off, but you know that he is not pleased with the start that he's got right now. He's going to be 3 over through 4 to start out his tournament today. Here's McMahon from right around the circle's edge, perhaps just outside. McMahon is off to a fantastic start, 4 under through 4.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good.
Yeah, I guess he could have eagled something, but that's pretty solid. And that putt didn't have anywhere to go but the middle of the basket. McBeth's putt. It's very much the same spot as Eagles. He is in for birdie. Looks like that lack of skip didn't hurt him quite as bad as he had assumed from the tee box. Last to putt will be Johnny McCray inside the circle. Oh, and just a bit high for McCray.
Very surprising to see that.
Yeah, he'll have to settle for par. Most of the time not bad out here, but disappointing once you're inside the circle. Moving over to hole 5, which measures in at 666 feet. This is playing kind of in the middle of the road for our competitors, just over par. We've got 38% of our field taking birdie so far. The play is to get down by these trees, but you either want to be short enough that you can throw around all of them, or to the right or left enough that you can play a hyzer or forehand out over the OB golf fairway, or backhand hyzer out over the OB cart path. An issue for some of our players might be throwing a drive that gets too far into the trees, which might force them to get creative with their approach. In general, this hole is played as one of the most difficult, but since we've moved the tee pad off of the cart path, it's changed the angle a little bit, and it's a little bit more open drive.
Well, and that's something I wanted to talk about briefly. Not only have we seen a few new holes added out here on the course, or a little bit of a change as some holes have morphed from 1 into 2 holes, or whatever the case might be. There are now concrete tees for every single hole out here, so that they're no longer playing from these cart paths. And that was something that Eric McCabe, the main course designer here, really strived for, as he wanted a good, consistent tee pad for our competitors when out here having a GBO experience, or just an Emporia Country Club experience.
As we see Eagle taking full advantage of the new tee pad and throwing a beautiful forehand out to the right side. That is basically picture-perfect position to throw a hyzer over the cart path and set himself up for the birdie 3. McBeth throwing a line drive over the cart path. It's got some distance. It is going to be a little close to the trees. He'll have to probably throw a steeper angle around than he'd like to, but still not a bad drive whatsoever. Johnny watches intently for a second and then walks away as he knows that he will be in the middle of the fairway. Although he may be having to do a little scrambling to get up to the basket, being so close to the trees.
We'll see if AJ can compose himself and really get settled in. He's had quite a rocky start as he sits +3 at the moment.
And this is a fusion enforcer for AJ. Not a bad spot. He will have to throw out and around either one side of the trees. Maybe a bit of a steep angle, but that's 4 good drives for our competitors so far. We're back on hole 5 with Eagle McMahon, lining up a hyzer around the right side of these trees. And that has skipped onto the golf fairway left, out of bounds. That's the first misstep we've seen from McMahon all day. He will be within 20 feet for his look at par 4, but that's a missed opportunity for Eagle. AJ opting for the low route through the trees, skipping up toward the basket. Beautifully executed.
Well, and as if he knew that his dad on the chat had just chimed in saying, sending positive vibes. Thanks for the coverage. So, Alan Risley, you are more than welcome. We are so glad to be doing so, to be featuring your son here during this first round. And maybe we'll see that turnaround that we were talking about, as AJ's put himself right next to the pin. See Johnny McCray just inside that 250-foot marker. Thank you to all of our super chat.
Johnny opting for the wide skip hyzer. Getting a nice skip that acts like it might roll back over the cart path, but stays in bounds. That is inside circle 1.
Says I will just sit right here for you. Paul McBeth coming off a very, very convincing win last weekend as he played just a few days ago at the Rumble in the Quad Cities. as he walked away from there with a 10-stroke victory.
Beautifully played by McBeth as that settles inside 5 feet of the basket. You see the gallery beginning to grow as we're only 5 holes into our opening round of the 2019 Glassblown Open. You see Eagle McMahon taking a walk up the fairway. It's an unfortunate skip for him out of bounds left. Usually that hyzer angle is good to hold on in that thick grass, but maybe you just got a bit unlucky or threw it a bit too hard. Yeah, he's been known to do that, to throw pretty hard, I've heard.
In the background, you see Johnny McCray walking up the fairway with his wife, Jen. Hand in hand, as we're enjoying a beautiful Wednesday afternoon out at the Emporia Country Club. Eagle trying to get an exact mark from the rest of his group.
McMahon is in for his par 4.
I kind of feel like he's washed up. Yeah,
the first blemish on his card.
One has to wonder if he's lost all of his confidence now that he's taken a par.
If you can call a par a blemish. I think as we see scores coming in like we are right now, those pars might start to look more and more like blemishes as we see Chris Dickerson 9 under through the first 10 holes. As we see Johnny McCray in for his birdie 3. He'll move to 3 under par through 5. We've also got Ricky Wysocki taking his first par of the day, 6 under through 7. Simon Lizotte also 6 under through 7, taking his lone par on hole 3. So we see Risley and McBeth both tap in for their birdie 3s.
They have a brief walk. We're going to take a look at hole 6, 343 uphill, Robert.
Yeah, this, like I said earlier, 343 doesn't tell the story of this hole. It's more like 380 or 390 effectively because of the uphill. Players have an out-of-bounds bunker, which is really the only OB they'll have to think much about. There is OB behind the basket and far to the left. This is playing as the easiest hole for the MPO field today, averaging 2.59 scoring average. More than half of the field carding a birdie here. This is a routine hyzer for most of our players. This, more than any other hole in the course, feels like a must-get birdie. If you walk away with par here, you feel really like you've lost the stroke to the field.
So it is 343 uphill. What would you say it effectively plays like? How drastic is that slope?
Yeah, like I said, maybe 380, 390 or so.
Okay.
When you're standing on the box, it looks like, oh, it's not that far, and then you throw it. The first time, I came up quite a bit short. Wow. So you have to throw it harder than you think the first few times you play it. Then it's a little bit easier to judge.
And as you said, they probably don't have to worry about it, but there is a somewhat new OB line that's directly behind the basket. That's about 30 to 35 feet behind the pin?
That's about right.
Okay, so you'd really have to put a move on it as you're already throwing uphill. Only a few players would have to worry about that necessarily, Eagle being one of them, McBeth as well, but we'll see if you can dial in that 380 effective distance.
That's right. I'm pretty confident this is a Raptor from McBeth. And that is well inside the circle. Great position. McCray opting for Enforcer for this tee shot. Over the bunker, skipping toward the basket. Well played. Risley will follow suit with an Enforcer as well. Risley's drive hanging out to the right. Right around the circle's edge. As I see I'm being corrected by the board here, a predator instead of a raptor. My apologies.
And McMahon comes up just outside the circle, but after the roll, I think lands inside it by a step.
So you just walked into a disc golf store. Look at all that sweet plastic. So many new discs to try. What if you don't like this new disc? Rest easy.
When shopping at any of our buyback retailers, if you are not completely satisfied with a disc from Dynamic Discs, Latitude 64, or Westside Discs, bring it back within 14 days with proof of purchase, and we will replace it with whatever disc you want in the store, no matter the brand. It is that simple.
Now get out there and play some disc golf. Check out dynamicdisc.com/retail to find a buyback retail partner near you.
The players are approaching the green here on hole number 6.
McMahon will be first to putt from about a meter inside the circle.
Wow, getting all international with me.
I'm very cultured. That's what people say about me a lot. McMahon's putt is high and off the band. Looked like he was expecting a little bit of wind help to bring that down, or it looked like he was motioning toward the wind. I didn't think there would be much wind to speak of, but it looks like he may have had a little bit of right to left wind. Risley's struggles continue as that putt is low and left with around a similar distance coming back to the basket.
If you're feeling a little bit on tilt, and then you have that putt that then carries that far away from the basket, that 15-footer now probably feels more like 28 feet.
Yeah.
And Risley just wants to be done with hole number 6. I'd like to see him gain some composure. That was a little bit faster than we normally see his routine. That one slips out of the left side. I'm in disbelief here. I knew right away when it was coming out of his hand that that was a somewhat hurried routine by Risley.
Yeah, it's so hard once you've had a few bad holes to gather yourself, collect yourself, and convert on that putt. And we see Risley just losing his focus a little bit right there. You see McCray and McBeth both will convert on their birdies, leaving only a par for McMahon. And then that'll be a bogey 4 for Risley.
Brief walk over to hole 7, 669 feet. This one's a new one, Robert. What are they looking at?
Yeah, new tee pad here. This perennially had played as one of the easiest holes relative to par, certainly the easiest par 4. So we move the tee pad over into some trees to force a little bit of a tunnel shot and also a bit of a low ceiling shot. Out of bounds on the golf fairway to the right, as well as the golf cart path to the left. A good drive ends up around the ditch that the drone is flying over right now and forces the players to throw a hyzer through these trees or some sort of anhyzer or forehand on the more open left side gap. The approach to the basket is all uphill, so covering that distance in the air is crucial. You're not going to get a whole lot of skip up the hill. This is playing as the 12th most difficult hole on the course today. About a third of our field taking birdie, with 39% of the field carding pars here.
Some would almost argue this has a near perfect distribution in terms of the scoring spread right now. Like you just said, 34% below par, 39% above or at par, and 27% above par.
That's right. One of the only holes, like I said, playing under par. This is just under par at a 3.99 scoring average on this par 4. McBeth asking for his disc to get down. That slipped out left on him. Oh my goodness. And I think that's out of bounds left. That path was never in play. We hardly saw anyone go out of bounds left. But with this low ceiling, if you get a little too much air under this disc, since you are directed a little bit more to the cart path, you can find that area relatively easily. And Johnny has hit the tree right next to the FPO box. That's going to make this hole feel a lot longer than it really is.
In fact, yesterday when I was on the course with EMAC and we were talking about the design of this hole and where they had put both the FPO and the MPO tee pads, we said if you remove that low-hanging branch that we see directly in front of us, the lowest one, you might get the nose up a little bit more and you might actually find that left side cart path. Otherwise, you're never going to find it. Well, somehow Paul McBeth has done just that, and Eagle McMahon's is left and flirting with it as well, but he's going to come up short of the cart path and he'll be in bounds.
That will likely leave the forehand side of the fairway open to Eagle McMahon, and as we've seen today, he's extremely proficient in throwing forehands, so he's well set up to cart a birdie 3 here. AJ with a low line drive and just starts walking after it. He knows that he's thrown a good one. That is past that ditch, which is becoming harder to do now that we've changed that tee box, and he should have a nice approach up to the basket.
And Johnny McCray with the relatively short drive here on hole number 7. Jen on the bag, as I mentioned earlier.
Johnny putting a huge move on this shot. Oh my goodness. Wow. Johnny covered maybe 100 feet off of that drive, so leaving him 500-ish feet, 550 feet, and he is just outside the circle, meaning he threw that shot about 500 feet just now. Wow.
Well, and they're going to now have a long walk, as McCray was so close to the tee from his original shot. And in the meantime, we can take a look here at the scoreboard. Joel Freeman still in the clubhouse, and, well, I think he's been there for a while now, but he's still our leader in the clubhouse as he sits at that 11 under. I think it's pretty safe to say that he's going to have that clubhouse lead challenged, and Chris Dickerson right on the forefront of doing that. Dickerson is 9 under through 11 holes, obviously carting just 2 pars thus far, and has the course dialed in from what we're seeing. Cale Leviska also in. He's sitting at 8 under. Austin Hannum and Jamie Espinoza both sit at 7 under. I know you said a little bit earlier we've got also Simon Lizotte I'm looking at, who's just through 7 holes but is 6 under. I think some of those names are going to literally just fall right off of that board as we're going to see new names shift up and above them due to some hot scores and some great scoring conditions that we have on our opening day.
Yeah, ridiculous starts to the rounds being put down by Wysocki and Lazat so far. And also, of course, Chris Dickerson. McBeth, after the out-of-bounds drive, is throwing his forehand up this hill. Just catches the bottom of one of the guardian trees on the left side of the fairway. It's going to leave him in circle 2, putting for par.
And that red marker that we discussed during the FPO round is just an indicator for how far away the player is from the basket. The blue ones indicate 400 feet, and the red ones that AJ is, or the red one that AJ is standing right next to right now, indicates 250 feet to the pin.
And this looks to be a goby for AJ Risley. One of his favorite straight approach discs. AJ doing a little dance with the 250-foot marker. Trying to figure out how he wants to approach here. It looks like he's just going to stand in front of it. And this is headed straight toward the basket. That's a great shot, hitting the tree just to the right. That'll be about 20 feet or so, maybe 25.
So both McBeth and McRisley both hitting trees, and looks like one was a little more advantageous in AJ's. Eagle not getting enough of a skip on that. I'm not sure if he meant to come up that short and have it skip forward to the basket, or if he just, flat out under threw it, but not taking full advantage of that monstrous drive that he had.
He is still inside the circle, but not quite as close as you'd assumed he would be. I guess I shouldn't assume what you had assumed.
Well,
that you would assume he would be.
Eagle McMahon throwing very far is, I think, a pretty fair assumption for most of us.
Yeah, that sounds good.
We mentioned it. Now, we are actually paralleling hole number 1. If you look off in the distance and that bus going by, for instance, that's the same road that parallels and is adjacent to hole number 1. So we are going the exact opposite direction, playing back up toward the clubhouse at the moment.
McBeth from circle 2 to save his par.
All right, yes, that look of disbelief from you does say it all. Paul McBeth getting up and down, still able to save the par. Here's a replay of it.
Yeah, less disbelief and more like, come on, man. Like, that's pretty good. This would be an incredible 3 save if McCray could convert. You have got to be kidding me. Wow. Now that's a look of disbelief.
McCray also deadly at that 34, 35-foot range where he can give it just that little step putt. He is so effective with that putt. Okay. Eagle not punished by the lack of approach proximity there. I really had to string together some words for that one.
I'm still reeling over McCray's 3-save from hitting the tree 100 feet off the box and then throwing 5-10 to that spot. Goodness.
Oh, wow. AJ high on that one. I think he has a little sigh of relief because I feel like that one was coming in a little bit hot. Well, we're going to move over to hole 8.
Hole 8 is a new hole for us here at the Emporia Country Club. 990 feet for the MPO field. This is old holes 8 and 9 combined together with a new longer basket. Players are going to be playing a big hyzer out over this cart path that's OB on the right side, hoping to land a little bit behind the drone here, throwing another shot down toward these trees with ground sloping toward the OB water on the left and the OB tall grass as well. Once you're down here, you get to throw an approach around 250 feet up to a basket that is past the FPO basket, which we're getting to just right now. I would be shocked to see somebody take a 3 here. I think we'll see quite a few 4s, but with OB lining the right and left sides of the fairway, this is by no means a gimme birdie. We see this as playing as the 3rd most difficult hole for the MPO division today, playing over three-quarters of a stroke over par at 5.79 scoring average.
Now, as you give me those statistics from UDisc, didn't we also hear that our tournament director, Doug Bjerkes,
yes.
has claimed, and now we are just one round in, he has claimed that he thinks we will see 3 separate eagles.
3 separate
over the
people
course of,
eagle it.
Yeah, over the course of this weekend.
Yeah, I'll take the under.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just being clear on that. What a great addition to this course as they are moving. EMAC had said that I liked hole 8, but I didn't love it. So for them to combine 8 and 9 here, and then ultimately we're going to add a new hole a little bit later in the round to make up for that combination, it just proves that these guys are always trying to grow and evolve and make the course better for everybody out here at the Emporia Country Club.
That's exactly right. McCray with another huge hyzer with his giant. He needs that to sit soft, and it has done just that. He's on the left side of the fairway, which is certainly the advantageous position to be if you're trying to throw another hyzer toward those trees.
As we are now approaching 3,500 live viewers. Thank you.
McMahon taking 3 totally out of play and just playing a nice safe hyzer short of the OB. Looks like he's going to try and bite off a little bit more on his second shot. This is a similar play that we saw from Paige Bjerkes and Paige Pierce earlier in the day. I'm very interested to see what McMahon's plan is for that second shot.
And thinking about what Doug had said in terms of people getting eagles on this hole, I think his chances just went down even further if Eagle McMahon's laying up, because yeah. Eagle McMahon is one of the few that could really even possibly obtain that feat.
AJ going with an enforcer. That has not stayed flat for as long as he wanted it to. That's going to be out of bounds on the left side of the fairway. And as much as you don't want to be out of bounds, being out of bounds on the left is better than the right, because he will get to travel all the distance up to where he threw out of bounds instead of having to take maybe 150 or 200 feet off of that.
Paul McBeth is lining up a very aggressive throw here.
This is a force from McBeth, and this is a towering hyzer out over the OB.
Puts himself about halfway up that hill. So not necessarily eagle range, but definitely birdie potential.
I think so.
We'll be back in a moment.
2019 Trilogy Challenge is here. This is a fun, casual event that anyone can run. For the $40 entry fee, players get 3 exclusive discs, a shirt, and a mini. Then, using only those discs, they play around in a more casual atmosphere, but there are prizes for the winners. With already around 200 events all over the country, find one near you at trilogychallenge.com.
We're back with Eagle McMahon lining up a forehand.
And the shape of a forehand suits this fairway extremely well, as it does run down right to left. This has a better chance to spike in and not kind of fade out with the hill as most hyzers do. If that's gotten down by those trees, he'll likely have another forehand around 250 feet for his approach to the basket.
Robert, as they're moving down the fairway, we're going to catch up with them in a moment, but one of the unique attributes that we find here at the Glass Blown Open is that players are eligible or allowed to pick a tee-off song.
That's right.
And it's a song that they can submit via the website or during the registration process so that they can have that played while they are throwing their very first tee-off shot. Now, is that for all 4 rounds?
Every round.
Every single round?
And every course has it at least once.
At least once. Excellent. Yep. Now, of course, the next question is, what is your tee-off?
Man, I have never been privileged enough to play the Glass Blown Open, so my feet haven't been put to the fire to choose that. I am a non-ironic fan of the song Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley.
Okay. Yep.
So I would probably go with that one, because some people would chuckle and they'd be like, "Hi, you tried to Rickroll us," but I'd be like, "Hey, I kind of like this song."
All right. Well, we just saw Paul McBeth throw a forehand right again in the center of the fairway. It looks like he's executing this one exactly as you would want to. And then my follow-up, I heard Mariah Carey's Dream Lover on the 90s Sirius radio on the way here today. As much as I may have been a Mariah Carey admirer back when I was a teenager, I think I'd have to fast forward, and I have to ask, do you think they would let me cut right to the drum solo from In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins?
Man, if you queued it up for them, they'd let you do just about anything.
All right, well, life
See you
goals.
next year.
Yeah, next year. I'm out of this commentator booth. I've got stuff to do.
Here's AJ playing a hyzer toward that OB cart path. He's covered a lot of distance there past most of the trees. That's going to give him a wide open opportunity to approach for his par 5.
Hold on.
And now not only are you throwing to just a spot here, because of course the pin is blind for Johnny McCray, but he's got a slight uphill run up. What are some of the things he has to be thinking about during this?
Yeah, this is just going to be really a smooth turnover down toward the trees is what he's playing for. And he's hustling up to see where it's landed. And it was probably less of a turnover, more of a hyzer. Looks like that's close to the OB. We're going to find out shortly if it has stayed in bounds or not.
Cameraman Chad is running down there.
Spotter running down as well. And he gets the green flag. You'll love to see that. Now, that is not an official ruling. We're going to wait on his card to get down there. But as it looks right now, he is safe and approaching the green with his 3rd shot.
Well, and as you just mentioned a moment ago, we saw the spotter. We'd like to go ahead and thank anyone and everyone that is out there wearing a purple shirt. There's more helpers besides them, but if you're wearing a purple shirt by Dynamic Disc, you're probably one of our heroes out there this week. Doug Bjerkes, the tournament director, who's 2016 Tournament Director of the Year with the PDGA. He knows more than anyone that spotters and all volunteers are really what make tournaments happen. And a tournament of this size, you're talking 1,600 people here this week. There's no way that could be kept under control unless you had the volunteer staff that you do.
That's exactly right. There's no way this would be anything like what it is without these volunteers. So huge shout out to them. Thank you guys for doing what you do. We see McMahon finish on the left side of the fairway there, opening himself up for kind of a spike forehand. It looks like his first forehand approach, so his second shot had rolled down the hill just a bit farther left than he would like to. But he's in a spot where I think he's just outside the circle, putting for a birdie 4.
Gabriel looks like it's expanded slightly since hole number 1. And what a gorgeous day to be out here, to be enjoying disc golf live on a Wednesday afternoon. I'm guessing as people get out of either school or work or whatever it might be, hopefully we'll see even more local representation coming out and enjoying the action.
McBeth approaching the basket with his zone. Yeah, looking for that one small skip and check. He's done so beautifully. It's going to set him up for an easy drop in 4. And speaking of volunteers here, we've got a shout out from Josh from UDisc, who's told us that we've got 100% coverage on live scoring at this event, which is certainly not always the case. You know, you have to have somebody volunteer or one of the players volunteer to do live scoring for their cards. So thank you to the volunteers and thank you to UDisc so that we can keep up with every card of action out here today.
We'll check in with more of our cards in a few moments. We're watching McCray take advantage of staying inbounds, throwing that to within 15 feet left of the pin. And some people have asked that. That's actually a perfect segue to wondering how in the world do the UDisc stats happen? And that's exactly what has to go down is we need people to show up to the course. They need to go out with a smartphone, or one can be provided, and a battery charger usually. And then a volunteer has to walk along with the group, and they actually just press buttons to let you know how far away they are. There's a slider and little clicks that they just have to do, and it really does all of the math and all the calculations for our competitors and for the scorekeepers. So you're not actually entering in numbers at any point. You're just using a little slider, and from there, the magic of the UDisc back-end servers do all the work for us. So yes, without a volunteer of sorts on every single card, we wouldn't have all the statistics that we do. So again, thank you to all of them as well. Thanks to Matt, Josh, and Daniel, who are out here as well.
We see Risley approaching the basket with his Warden. He's come up a bit short, about 25 feet. And just before that, Johnny McCray throwing a huge drive so that he could throw his putter, his throwing putter, which is a shield, twice down to the water and then once up to the basket for about a 15-footer for birdie. And this is McMahon from what looks to be 45, 48 feet. McMahon starting that putt on a bit of Anheuser to get a little bit of extra distance. And he just unfortunately let it go right of the basket.
As they're approaching the lie, we see Chris Dickerson has taken a bogey on hole number 13. So Dickerson moves to 9 under par, and Drew Gibson has put down 6 out of his last 7 holes for birdie, and Drew now sits at 8 under par as AJ Risley cleans up. Simon Lizotte sitting at 7 under through 8. I'm guessing there's a backup on our next hole, so I'm thinking we're going to see a little bonus coverage and action as we move over to hole 9 here in a few moments.
I love the bonus footage.
We all do.
That's not a bad par for eagle, but I'm honestly not really surprised to see him only be able to get a par after throwing that intentionally short tee shot. It just makes the hole feel so much longer at that point.
Just feels like one you'd expect Eagle to gain a stroke or two on the field.
Yeah, you're right.
Depending on how aggressive he wanted to be. So to have him walk away with a par, I'm quite surprised by that.
So we got 2 pars and 2 birdies for our featured card today. Moving over to hole 9, this is a brand new tee shot and one of the most daunting tunnels to throw on the course. In fact, there aren't very many tunnels on the course, so you kind of have to shift your mentality. Players need to clear these trees and stay right of that OB cart path on the left and left of the tall grass on the right. Land on the fairway that the drone is flying over right now. If they don't, they'll go to a drop zone that's just left of the cart path. From there, it's either a big turnover or a forehand around the corner to get up to this basket, which is closely guarded by some trees and surrounded by OB on the back and right sides of the basket. This is going to be one of the most difficult holes on the course today. As we see, it's actually playing as the most difficult hole on the course today. Only 9% of the field taking birdie out here so far. That's 12 of our 140 players who have passed through so far. Oh, pardon me, 12 of 128 who have passed through, which means we've got quite the backup on this hole.
We do, and isn't it interesting, your intuition, as you knew we were talking about how challenging this hole is, the changes and what that's going to mean for our players, and you're thinking, okay, this might be one of the toughest ones out here. Well, just a simple click, and UDisc says, yeah, no, it's definitely the toughest.
In fact, the toughest.
Exactly. Well, I think we're going to have a little extra footage for you as our cameramen are getting in position. We have at least what was the second to last card to tee off. I believe we're going to be able to catch up with them and see how they attack hole number 9. Earlier this morning, we saw some challenges on the FPO side. We actually saw 3 out of our 4 women find the OB, and they somewhat struggled here through hole 9. So we'll see what we can find on the men's side.
And as we were just cutting back, we see Zach Melton throwing off the tee, and he actually didn't quite clear that OB wall. Got a little bit on the right side of the fairway. He'll be headed to the drop zone. That's an unfortunate break for Melton because this is a hole he should feast on with a natural left to right movement of the fairway. And that's a good-looking shot that just scoots out of bounds at the last moment. Yeah, the tough thing about this is, I mean, the tunnel is fair. These guys play in tighter tunnels than that throughout the entire year, these guys and girls. But finding that speed control and the line that can hold straight or even move just a little bit right that they can land in, there's probably 60 to 80 feet between the wall and the cart path, depending on how straight you're throwing. But it all filters downhill towards it. And so it really feels like there's about a 30-foot circle that you can land in and be safe.
Well, as you have your right-handed players, like you're saying, that filter, it almost feels like a runoff zone, and that's exactly everything left and beyond what you would find as the OB area. And then at that point, everyone goes to the drop zone. And we discussed it earlier. If you're moving to the drop zone here, that's guaranteed at best is a bogey.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can imagine a shot that gets up to the basket maybe by a booming lefty or someone with a huge forehand, but that's I don't know what the distance is from the drop zone to the basket, but it's a long way, it's uphill, and it's a blind shot.
Well, as we are waiting here and all of the card is moving forward, actually on this hole, I wanted to quickly go back and recap. This morning, so many of you were with us. We invite you to join us again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central Time. And on our featured lead card for tomorrow morning's round, we've got Katrina Allen, who is our outright leader right now at 4 under par. She's going to be joined by Jessica Weiss, who sits 3 back of her at 1 under par. Jennifer Allen and Rebecca Cox are both at 2 over par, and they will round out our lead card. Now, they are also tied with Paige Bjerkes. However, they go by lowest PDGA number in this situation, and Jennifer and Rebecca getting the nod there, so Paige Bjerkes will be on the top of the second card. Now, we are back with the highest-rated lefty in disc golf. This is Dynamic Disc's own Zach Melton.
Zach going with a huge hyzer up over everything. Hard to tell where that ended up, but Melton seems pleased with the effort. I know that was a Raider that he threw on that hyzer, and this is also a Raider for Eric Oakley. He's been loving these for his forehands.
Really? I'm confused. I didn't think he knew of any other disc besides a felon.
That's a fair assessment. That's a smooth shot for Oakley. Maybe not quite inside the circle, but covered basically all of the distance that he needed.
And we hear a little bit of the chatter taking place out there on the course. We'll see if things kind of work themselves out at this point once we get through hole 9. I'm sure Eric McCabe knew when he went out and then helped carve out that new tunnel shot that there would be a potential for some backups there, just the way with that it plays and that it's as punishing as it is. We talked a little bit earlier how they combined holes 8 and 9 together to make a single hole, and then we're going to see hole 12 is ultimately a new hole.
That's right.
How have you, as a local, taken in all of these changes?
Yeah, I love the new changes. I mean, Country Club for the last forever has just been a not wide open. There's OB in a lot of places, but you could throw whatever sort of shot you wanted to. You could throw a hyzer, you could throw an anhyzer, you could throw straight. I like that some of these changes force your hand just a little bit more. See Simon throwing that roller up the hill. There is out of bounds long left up there, and it looks like he may have found it with that roller. I'm kind of surprised to not see Simon throw maybe a P2 on an anhyzer or a mid-range on an anhyzer there, because he has ample power to reach the green that way.
Looked like he was doing everything he could to get himself all the way up to the basket. And here we've got Ricky Wysocki, who is also off to a really good start here today. Wysocki, I believe, started 7 for 8. And we're going to double check that right now. Yes, he is in fact 7 under through the first 8 holes here today.
Yeah. And Wysocki stymied by by those what look like railroad ties right in front of him. He's thrown a huge anhyzer over the trees. That is safe. He's looking at the basket. Hard to tell just how far away that is. I would assume he's around Circle 2's edge.
I'm very fortunate where it doesn't itch a lot. I'll get like random spots, like itch or something like that, but overall it doesn't. I just get the blistering. That's all. So yeah, I hear that lotion's the one that anti-itch and stuff.
As we're moving our catch camera up the fairway. Now, of course, our lead card, or our feature card, I'm going to correct myself there, our feature card there is having a conversation. They're not going to need to wait for them to tee, but for a moment, stand down.
Why'd they have to wait until that? Because so we're playing who's the enemy. He's got a different looking uniform, and it's lighter, so they always put a platoon of bad guys out in the woods, and that's what we're fighting. These army crawling out there. And then you don't watch it. You're like, it was inside out. Why would you?
And we heard a little bit of that as Wysocki was going for his birdie attempt from long range, from what we like to call Circle Ricky, actually. And Simon Lizotte, tough to tell. We'll see if, he is confirming he's actually inbounds.
Oh, wow.
And per the rules, I just wanted to touch on something, Robert. I don't know if that's where you're going with it.
Go ahead.
But per the rules, make sure that your group always sees that you are inbounds. If you are, have at least one group member come over and confirm. Oh, Simon's trying to will that one in. But have a group member come over and confirm. Don't just put your marker down and throw from there, because the rule states that you could be considered out of bounds if you're not clear with your group.
That's right. Here's Johnny McCray. I believe that's his warship, and that is exactly the type of speed control and flight that you need to land your disc in bounds here. Something a little bit slower that you can hold straight. It's not going to do too much variance from left to right, or right to left, honestly, and that you can land kind of within a certain distance, like a consistent 300 feet, 320 or so. That's really all you need to throw on this tee shot.
And Paul McBeth, I believe this is a buzz.
Yeah, that's the same sort of shape that McCray threw. He's got a little bit more right turn on it. Oh, and it's hard to know if that stayed in bounds on that right side. It's very close to the out-of-bounds flags.
Looked like he was flirting with it. I think he's going to be in bounds.
Yeah, and if so, he's going to have that big turnover or a really tight forehand up and over everything. McMahon here is throwing one of the new putters that Discmania is having produced for them by Yukun Discs. I want to say it's called the Guardian Lion, something like that. It's a very slow, moderately overstable putter that he can just throw dead straight. Last to throw here is AJ Risley, and this is a Gold Line Explorer for AJ. That's a good release for AJ, working to the right. No danger of going out of bounds on the left. It's good to see AJ execute after having a few speed bumps along the way here.
Yeah, I can't say that enough, how great of a shot that was by AJ. And hopefully what it will do is also mentally get him over maybe a little bit of a hump. Maybe he can relax a little bit as he's sitting +2, not off to a very good start. He is 8 behind Johnny McCray at the moment and 7 behind Paul McBeth and Eagle McMahon. Now, Eagle is out of bounds, so at best he may be walking away with the bogey that we talked about. If there is one guy that has the power, though, to somehow find himself at the basket, it is Eagle, and we'll see how creative he gets. We see Sean Sinclair out there as one of our PDGA officials.
Yeah, as we were talking about on the podcast a few days ago, I think Eagle, if he doesn't have he's certainly, I think, in the top 3 forehands in the game right now when it pertains to control as well as power. I mean, it seems like he doesn't do a whole lot with his body, and the disc goes 400 feet or so. I would say the effective distance needed to reach this basket is probably around that 400-foot mark.
And he does have the out of bounds to contend with. It is deep and right of the basket. And even if it weren't OB, there's some trees and shrubs and whatnot that he's going to have to deal with.
If I'm not mistaken, this looks like a DD3, one of his cloud breakers. And that is around the corner. It looks to be safe. Probably in a similar spot to where we saw Ricky Wysocki land just a moment ago. But
Ricky was left with probably a 50 or 60 footer.
That's about right. We only see one drive filtering out of bounds for our players on this hole so far. We haven't found McBeth just yet, but if he's in bounds, I think that would be one of the best driving cards of the day, as it seemed like earlier we saw card after card after card go out of bounds. McBeth took a quick look, and it looks like they're walking back up the hill.
Looks like it might actually be AJ's turn, and then there may or may not have to be a continued conversation about Paul McBeth and whether or not he's in bounds.
Looks as if AJ is eyeing up the huge Anheuser with his Goby here. This is going to have to be very high in the air to get the pan to the right that it needs to reach the basket.
And here's something also worth noting from a pro move / actual. You don't have to be a professional to know these rules. AJ is lining up himself and his footwork to where the pin is, not necessarily to where the rest of the fairway is, but to where the pin is, because you are putting your line and running up behind your marker in accordance to that line of play, not necessarily the line of the fairway.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Is that eloquent enough? Did I spit that out, Robert?
I think you're exactly right. Your line is to the basket no matter what direction you're throwing.
Thank you.
So AJ has ended up maybe circle two's edge or a little bit outside. We see that today, just to show you how difficult this hole is to access, we've had only 2 players attain that birdie that were also parked. That's Dustin Keegan and Weston Isaacs. Those are 2 of only 14 players to card a birdie 3 here today. Next to the throw is Johnny McCray, and this is, believe it or not, a shield. Get some good applause there. It looks like he may have put himself inside the circle.
And McBeth is going to assess what he has. While he's doing that, I want to quickly check in. It's kind of funny to actually mention it, but we're in Kansas, so we have to. The weather for the next few days does look just glorious. We're looking at 73 degrees tomorrow, mostly sunny with a little bit of wind. Mostly sunny on Friday and partly cloudy with a little bit of wind on Saturday. 73, 74, and 76 degrees respectively over the next 3 days. Nobody can argue with that. Well, the 22-mile-an-hour winds maybe we won't love, but great temperatures.
Yeah, I am thrilled that that's going to be the playing conditions for our competitors. McBeth reassessing his choice and in one fell swoop changes from a huge anhyzer to just a forehand safe up and around the corner.
So a little bit of restraint there by McBeth, and we have to talk about what that really means, not only now, but what that can mean throughout the course of this day and obviously throughout the course of the event. But McBeth deciding that the shot or the conditions just were not there. And he did not try to force that shot, and I'd like to say that's definitely a world champion move right there.
I agree. The out of bounds is within 25 feet on the short right side of the basket, and there's a little bit more freedom if you go long. But from where McBeth was, I would say he was definitely more in danger of being short. So he takes what looked like the buzz that he was going to throw on a huge turnover and just casually forehands it up to the corner. Jump putts to inside circle 1. He'll have probably 25 feet or so for his par 4.
Let's see. Jonathan Gomez running up, trying to make sure he gets in position for that potential slow mez or no mez, as I think we sometimes see. Of course, we have to talk about how this is the most covered disc golf event we've ever seen. We've got FPO live, MPO live on the lead cards for the rest of the week. Then we have FPO 2 covered by Gatekeeper Media. We have MPO 2 covered by Jomez Productions. And then we also have Dynamic Disc covering MPO 3. And then, of course, Jomez on FPO 1 and MPO 1 as well. Sounds like a Sudoku puzzle.
Risley with a valiant effort from what looked like about 50 feet with OB directly behind the basket. That's one that you can't be quite as aggressive as you'd like to be. Looks like he settled safe, so he will be inside the circle, putting for his par. And this is McMahon from the drop zone to save his 4.
He had the height.
That's going to ultimately be a bogey for Eagle McMahon. That's going to be his first blemish on the card of the day. That will move him back to 4 under par through 9 holes. Oh, and Johnny McCray goes mid-range putter on this hole that a lot of players are going mid-range driver or something like that. Just catches the band and settles down. He'll have 15 left for his par.
No.
And McBeth, a critical error.
Oh my gosh, I don't believe what I just saw there. So after McBeth opts for the safe play on his second shot, he's not able to get up and down. Wow.
Risley is in for his bogey, it looks like. He may have gone out of bounds on that putt. McMahon is in for his par, and this is Johnny McCray for his.
Hole 9 not letting up on our feature card here. We're going to move over to the blind. Hole number 10. What are we looking at, Robert?
Yeah, this is a middle-of-the-road hole for our competitors, averaging just over par. We have, to shout out one ace on this hole today, Lauren J. Lewis carding the lone one on this blind downhill tee shot. 391 feet that effectively plays more like 360 or so. Players have out of bounds on the right side with tall grass and then out of bounds on the left side in the fairway. The more prevalent out of bounds is the right side, as you do have to force your disc just moving to the right to get it to crest that hill and ride down to the basket.
This morning I was a little bit surprised to not see any birdies from our FPO feature card that we had. And I'm even more surprised, as we were just looking at the UDisc stats, to see that this is playing as 3.07 and is actually playing above par. I wouldn't have guessed that coming into this. Do you think that's normal for this hole?
I do. It's
Okay.
It feels relatively straightforward when you're standing on it, but it's such a technical tee shot, especially when there's any wind, to force that disc just to the right so that it rides to the right, doesn't dive too far right. Some people are scared of that right side OB, so they throw it a little too straight and hyzer out into the fairway left. It's just easy to find trouble here. So not going to see a ton of birdies from the FPO field as we saw today. In fact, 0 today. So far for the MPO field, we've seen 32 players card the birdie as well as that one ace. Then about half of the field carding par 3s here.
Johnny McCray with the honors. I believe that flag-stamped disc is a worship. Is that correct?
That is a worship, and that's a great stability for this hole for Johnny. Something that he can throw that'll ride just to the right. Can't tell if that rode a little bit too far to the right or not, but he felt confident in his release. Either way, he will be down by the basket. Sounds like
Catch cameraman may have actually just alerted us that Johnny McCray's tee shot went out of bounds.
And this is Risley with his Explorer, same as the tee shot on in the previous hole. Yeah, that's going to end up short for Risley. Looked like he just crested the hill, but not with enough height to penetrate all the way to the basket. I would assume this is a buzz for McBeth. A little bit of a hyzer flip up, and that is the result you're looking for.
I believe we can change that from a buzz to a birdie. Just like that. McBeth right next to the pin.
How do you signify a buzz on a scorecard? Is it something that you have to change to write down a birdie, or is that just... Okay.
I'm guessing actually most of the time you're going to be disqualified if you have a buzz on the scorecard.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're just going to move on from that one.
Last throw will be Eagle McMahon. Watching intently as his disc flies down the fairway, waiting for it to finish. It's done so beautifully. I believe that was a PD. Something definitely that was faster than a mid-range, I think.
We've got a throwback from the Glass Blown Open.
Circle 2. And maybe he should get frustrated more often as he just casually jams.
and our two-time world champion in Ricky Wysocki, canning a long putt, something he's, of course, famous for, as he had done it here on this very hole. I believe that was just last year. And Wysocki, although he hasn't had quite the hot start that some of us maybe would expect, or we haven't seen him taking down a bunch of big tournaments as we expect him to do, it looks like he's off to a really good start. So maybe there's a little bit more of a comfort here. Wysocki, of course, claiming his first world title here. It seems like things are clicking for him, at least today.
Here's Risley approaching with his deputy. That should net him a par. I remember that shot because Ricky turned his drive over out of bounds and went out of bounds maybe 60 feet from the basket, threw that putt in for circle 3, and it was probably the most disgusted anyone's ever been for a 60-footer to go in the basket.
Except for some other time where he's thrown a 70 or 80-footer in for par as well.
That's right.
Ricky Wysocki really hard on himself from time to time.
Probably just through here. Yeah. Just turn in for me. Yeah. Oh, back right. Very good. That's fine. Can you go through this?
I think so.
Maybe like 5 feet further.
5 feet further?
Yeah.
Okay. You good with that?
Yeah.
So we see our card members deciding where Johnny McCray went out of bounds, or at least their closest approximation. Johnny kind of got a little bit of confirmation about what he thought, and Eagle said 5 feet farther, and Johnny said, "You think so? Yeah, that sounds good." And here he is putting for par from circle 2.
Draws metal, but he's going to ultimately walk away with a bogey here. And Eagle McMahon, easy cleanup on aisle 11 for the birdie.
Eagle somehow got one hole into the future, as this is aisle or hole 10, but whatever.
Well, it was once hole 11 in a different year, so I'm not entirely wrong.
No,
it's been a long day, Robert.
Hey, the hole numbering is honestly messing with me as well. The combining 8 and 9 has shifted everything from what I'm used to, so we'll let this one slide.
I appreciate that.
That's going to be a bogey for McCray as he walks away a little bit dejected from the hole slowly there.
Now we're going to move over to our 11th hole, 399 feet, par 3, Robert.
Yep, 12th most difficult hole on the course today, playing at a scoring average of 2.99. Third of our field taking birdie here, 40% par and 27% bogey or worse. This is just a big right-hand hyzer for our players. The out of bounds they have to worry about is the cart path to the left and the golf green to the right. The normal golf fairway is in fact safe here, but all of our competitors should fly over the top of that. The only time that this hole plays even a little bit more moderately difficult is if there's some headwind or a strong crosswind on either side. I think we'll see just overstable distance drivers from our competitors hung out toward the tree that's by the basket and then just let them fade right near it.
We're seeing a few of our stats and details from the course of thanks again to UDisc. And thanks again to all the tremendous supporters and sponsors that make this event possible. We've touched a little bit on all the volunteers and the staff that make that possible. I know Jackie is also our volunteer coordinator, and she does a phenomenal job at coordinating all of the. Do you have any idea just how many volunteers are out here by chance?
I don't know the exact number this year. I know in past years it's been around that 100 number, which is just incredible to see people volunteering their time like that. And of course, like you said, shout out to Jackie Morris. Just recently took the job as our retail store manager. And so she's been really doing double duty, doing that as well as the volunteer coordination show. So can't say enough good things about Jackie Morris. Wow. And she was on my volleyball team this year, so she's quite the volleyball player as well.
Oh, wow.
Multi-talented.
Triple threat kind of gal.
Multi-talented. Here's McBeth. I believe this is a force, and I believe that's parked. There's not much to it. When you can throw as far as these guys, it really just comes down to distance control. You know, how high do you want to throw this hyzer to minimize the skip and make sure that it's kind of just a one skip and a check. McMahon nearly mimicking McBeth's line here. Finishing just a bit right of where McBeth did. He'll be outside the circle with his PD2.
And what's so entertaining but yet maybe so disheartening at the same time is watching someone like Eagle McMahon throw this shot at over 400 feet and just looks like he throws it at like 60% power.
Right.
Just too easy.
Yeah, I usually go with 105% on this one.
Exactly.
AJ Risley going with his Mango Enforcer. Looks like that's a bit right of his intended target line. And also a bit short, but that's skipped and hopped around the tree. He will have a look at this basket. Johnny McCray last to throw, also with an Enforcer. A little bit lower and more direct line.
Whoa.
Oh my goodness, nearly running it in the basket. He'll still have the CTP stolen from him by McBeth, but that is 18 feet and flashing the chains on the way by.
Great shot by Johnny McCray. Here's a word from Dynamic Discs.
The word from Dynamic Discs is, look how good this Enforcer is.
Where could I pick up one today?
Well, you can go to dynamicdiscs.com or the Emporia retail store to check it out.
Thank you, Dynamic Discs.
Here's an actual word from Dynamic Discs.
Dymax is a process where we can take just about any image and put it on a disc.
Can we Dymax our love?
Well, yeah, we can Dymax that. Find out more about all the things that we can put on a disc at dynamicdiscs.com/Dymax.
Here's McMahon for his birdie effort just outside the circle. That looked like about a 15-footer. Confident stroke from McMahon as he'll pick up 2 birdies in a row now and cover up his blunder from hole 9.
Maybe you know something about this, but has AJ ever had a back problem, or is that something that he's doing preventatively in the way that he leans down? And I'm being serious. I know you're actually smiling at me right now, but the way that AJ leans down to mark his lie, it seems as if maybe he's concerned about something about his back.
Sure. I do not know the answer to that.
Okay. Believe it or not, I wasn't trying to be funny.
I thought you were going to say something about like carrying a doubles partner. Or
no.
I don't know.
It's just the way that, and again, it's a genuine question as to if he's worried about a twist or a turn or anything of that nature. And maybe that's just always been part of his routine or habit, the way that he does it. These are the things that keep me awake at night, Robert.
McCray is in for birdie as well, so this will be a star birdie frame for our featured card here today on hole 11.
Very impressive. Not nearly as impressive as Ace Run Productions. Another super chat. Thank you, Ace Run. Let's move over to hole 12.
We're going to see some different plays here from the FPO card as we will the MPO card. Hole 12, 314 feet. I think that we'll see some of the big hyzers from our MPO competitors. You've got this big bushy tree in the fairway to navigate. If you choose to play that big hyzer out over the right side tree line, there are a lot of trees that want to keep you out. So the play is really to land maybe 30 feet short or about 20 feet long. That's where the gaps in the trees are. Otherwise, you kind of have to throw a flex shot up the middle. You can't turn it too hard or leave it too straight. It's a very touchy shot. So I'd say the initial part of the hyzer is wide open. I mean, pick any angle, throw any height. But once you get up toward the basket, you've got some guardian trees that can keep it from just being a simple hyzer. Today it is playing as our 16th easiest hole, one of the only holes under par at 2.86 scoring average. We've got 43 players who have taken birdie here, 55 who've taken par, and then 14% at bogey or worse. I'm very interested to see how our card tries to attack this right now.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're going to see a few of the big hyzers, and if they're not a big hyzer trying to take out that right side tree line out of play, it might be a high spike forehand, but could be dead wrong. It looks like McBeth might be going with some kind of a mid, and maybe he's just going to do a gentle turnover.
Yeah, McBeth taking the danger out of play by going down the middle here. I think he's caught the very bottom right side of the bushy tree in the middle of the fairway. And just as you said, Eagle McMahon is lining up the huge forehand.
Yeah, I think he's going to try and go high out and around that left side bush.
And this is his PD2, same one as he threw on the last hole. That will work just fine.
Yeah, and not many people can actually execute the shot with that much power as they're throwing slightly uphill. To have the height on it that he did, to clear that bush, very impressive shot by Eagle McMahon. And AJ's lining up what I feel like almost mirrors that shot on the opposite side. He's going to go with the backhand, and we talked a little earlier about him, either being a little bit short or a little bit long of the basket. Because if you try and come in right where the pin is, there's trees that will block that.
Limbs waiting to hurt your feelings. I would say similar stability on the discs that these players have chosen. Eagle with the PD2 and AJ here with the Lucid X Enforcer. This has great height, and we don't get to see that finish, but he's gotten some applause, so we're going to assume that he landed in bounds.
This is a Saint Pro, I believe, by Johnny McCray.
That's right. OptoX Saint Pro, one of Johnny McCray's Tour Series discs from last year. This is a hyzer flip to turn. And beautifully executed. I'm telling you, when you're standing on that tee box, it doesn't even look like that shot is there, but McCray has proven it's there.
Well, I've seen McCray work that disc in so many different angles, watching him and McBeth, along with Calvin Heimberg, battle it out a few weeks ago at the Open at Tallahassee, presented by Dynamic Disc. The way that he was throwing, I finally had to just go up to him and say, what exactly is that? Because I watched him work that disc on so many different angles. Very impressive for everything that he's doing out there. And we're going to, again, take a look at the leaderboard, thanks to UDisc and the PDGA. Joel Freeman still is your leader. And I know we said it earlier. We claim that we think he'll get pushed down. Maybe
Now
maybe
that we're farther in,
yeah.
I mean, it's holding pretty strong.
Maybe not off that lead card at this point, and we were worried if he was going to even maintain a spot on a lead card. But right now, he is still pretty comfortable at that 11 under. Chris Dickerson still charging forward. However, Dickerson is through 16, and his pace has slowed down slightly. Great round, but not quite at the pace he was on, as he sits at 9 under par. Lizotte continues to push forward. He's 8 under through 12, and Cale LaVisca, I believe, is already in the clubhouse with his 8 under.
That's exactly right. Yeah, Lizotte with the most potential to do damage left on the course, 8 under through 12, like you said. Dickerson has just bogeyed the island hole, hole 16, so he'll need to finish birdie to tie Joel Freeman in the clubhouse. So we see McBeth That's about a 60-footer from underneath the bush there. It's a tough spot to land. Risley is just inside the circle for his look at birdie.
And a great birdie there by A.J. Risley.
McMahon with the unintentional slow mess here on Smashbox. This is the portion of the course this morning where we saw a little bit of cell signal issues. So we'll do our best to give you the smoothest coverage that we can. It leaves McBeth take the lone par here as our other three competitors will card birdie twos.
Hole 13, 394 feet, par 3, Robert. There's plenty of danger here.
Another one of the, actually the holes that's playing the easiest relative to par. I say easiest, I should put strong air quotes around that. Playing just under par to 2.96 scoring average. 27% of the field playing under par with one ace on this hole as well today, Colton Montgomery. Congratulations to you, Colton.
Attaboy.
But we've moved this tee pad off of the cart path, I guess it was last year maybe, and that changes the angle that you have to throw. Used to, you could just throw a big hyzer over the cart path with the knowledge that if it gets in, it'll be pretty close to safe, maybe skip a little left and you have a 30-footer. Now that the cart path isn't the tee pad, we've moved that tee pad maybe 100 feet to the left. So now players are having to throw at the cart path and sometimes even over it in order to get back in bounds and get close to this basket. It feels like it plays longer than the old hole for some reason. Maybe just it's because of that uphill. If players decide to play safe, there is also out of bounds left on the tall grass side. So not the easiest hole in the world. I think we'll see probably a couple of pars, maybe a birdie. More than likely not a bogey in case, unless somebody tries to push their shot way too straight.
Our card almost is ready. I was going to say we're making the turn into that, last 1/3 or so of the course. We're glad that you are here and joined us today on a Wednesday afternoon. Terry Miller, along with Robert McCall, as we're calling the shots for the opening round of the 2019 Glassblown Open. We're at the Emporia Country Club, which will play host to us this entire week on both the FPO and MPO side. Never before have we had all of our rounds for the Glassblown here at this single course. Last year, the men played here for all 3 rounds. However, the women were at other local courses. And this week, we're going to see all 8 rounds, plus the Rainwater Raz round taking place here. Again, not a full power shot by Eagle, but that's going to need to get left, and it does.
You have got to be kidding me. Eagle has found a way. What's the opposite of Velcro? Because that's what he's put on his disc there. That grass over there is thick. It rarely skips or gets any sort of ground action in a favorable way. It almost always keeps players' discs out of bounds. So Eagle, I think that's that same PD. It's certainly the same disc that he threw on that downhill hole 10. So that's a, favorable break for him. Maybe he knew it all the way, but
no, I think he was a little nervous himself. Eagles gives me a little bit of that skater vibe. Maybe he was out, maybe like waxing the deck of your trucks or your boards. I don't know. I think I'm dating myself a little bit here, but Eagles somehow managed to get that to slide over the grass, back over the cart path, and back in bounds.
Risley taking a full flight high on that side of the sidewalk, also getting a skip, but his had a little bit more height and a little bit better angle. Still, though, I would say in years past, we see those stick a lot, and they're just an absolute heartbreaker.
That is a very, very dangerous angle and line to be coming at because, like you just said, that could easily just stop dead in its tracks and be out of bounds, and you're taking it from way back near the tee.
McCray taking more of the safe route. He's covered all of the distance that he needs, but left it maybe 35 left of the basket.
And to be fair, there was once a product that was some form of disc wax
Is
that was
right?
released. Yes, again, I may still be dating myself in saying that, but I know in the last 15 years, a company did make some form of disc wax, as Paul McBeth very unpleased.
Yeah,
or displeased, I think is the better word.
That's right. Early release for him. That is safe, but nowhere near the result that he was looking for.
I play disc golf because it started out as a means for me to be competitive, but it quickly turned into a community that I could be around and really enjoy being a family. Every place we go and every new stop we get to be at is an opportunity to meet more of your family, and that aspect keeps me playing and keeps me wanting to just do more with the sport. Choosing the Lucid X Felon was a no-brainer for me. It was a disc that I was able to lean on and rely on. It quickly became a staple in my bag. I was able to make it do a lot of different things. The Lucid X Felon is super overstable, incredibly reliable. If I know I'm in a tough situation, I pull it out, and I know that the Lucid X Felon is going to get the job done.
And Paul McBeth still finds a way to take the birdie after he was very unhappy with that drive. And then he paused a little longer. Here's a look from another angle. Oh, and the fist pump
a little
by
fist
McBeth.
pump, little momentum generator. I like that.
And if you're wondering, wow, why is Paul wearing long sleeves? Because you were probably thinking that to yourself earlier. He found himself in a bunch of poison ivy last weekend. So I said, Paul, really? You won by 10 strokes. Maybe you should just shoot better. How do you find poison ivy if you just stay in the fairway? He's like, well, I got off the fairway one hole. Well, it is all the way up and down his body, and he said that it hurts.
Johnny walking it in. So my prediction of a couple of birdies and a couple of pars is not looking great right now. As our farthest out competitors have already poured in birdies of their own.
AJ goes over for the delayed fist bump from both of the previous birdie.
I'm sure you can see this from the perspective we watched for the second angle on McBeth's putt, but that cart path isn't but 18 or 20 feet behind the basket. That's a difficult spot to putt from and be aggressive on. You can see that he put it nice and high in the air and just kind of let it fall into the basket.
And we are looking at a star frame here, which is quite impressive, if so.
Yeah, without McBeth hitting the bush in the middle of the fairway on the last hole, we'd have gone 3 star frames in a row. Pretty good stuff from our feature card.
Is there a name for a triple turkey?
Yeah, triple turkey.
Okay. Do you know why 3 in a row are called a turkey?
I do not.
We'll get to that on the next
All
one.
right, sounds good. Moving on to hole 14. This is one of my favorite holes on the course and an iconic hole as it was featured on SportsCenter with Eagle throwing in for Eagle 2 here. 751 feet. The tee shot affords you lots of gaps that you can choose. Forehand is not a bad play off of this box. Neither is taken down the right side. if you want to approach the green effectively on a forehand, you want to be farther left on the fairway. And if you are closer to the middle or on the right side, that's going to open up the hyzer around the tree by the basket for you. You are going to have to challenge that out-of-bounds fence there on the right side. And on the left side, you'll be challenging that out-of-bounds golf green. In fact, the out-of-bounds line is quite a ways off of the golf green, maybe 5 or 6 feet off of the golf green. So it's a little tighter, I think, than our competitors will really remember until they get up there.
And hopefully it's not too late at that point.
Yeah, exactly. We actually saw Paige Pierce fall prey to that today. When she threw that forehand, thought it was safe and got up there, it was maybe 6 inches out of bounds, only 40-ish feet from the basket. This is playing as our 8th most difficult hole so far today, 4.08 scoring average. And as we hear from Johnny, we usually do have a backup on this hole. That's what we see that we're going to encounter right now.
Well, and that sounds like a good time to talk about. I could completely misspeak on that, but that wouldn't be a first.
No.
Earlier, I alluded to the idea of how the turkey came about, and I believe it had something to do with when people would get 3 in a row. I believe this is in the bowling world.
Yeah, I knew about it in bowling.
They would get 3 in a row. It's commonly referred to as a turkey, but I think that came about because there was either a particular bowling alley or lane or tournament that would reward people turkeys for getting, like, an actual turkey.
For getting 3 strikes in a row?
Yeah. Now, somebody can fact check me.
I don't
sure
think
Wikipedia.
I've ever done that, but I'm down for a turkey. I like turkey.
So I believe that's it has something to do. Now, I may be mixing some of my stories or making up some of my sources, but if you go out there and do some fact checking, which I should have done in the break, it has something along those lines. I think at one point somebody was awarding turkeys as a prize for getting 3 in a row of something. And I don't know if bowling picked it up or that was originally a bowling concept, but actual turkeys were part of it.
I like that. I'm super interested. I also like the way that AJ has started to order his putts that he runs down during the round. They're always outside the circle putts. So, on the first one, he hits them with the first down. Second one, he says, feed me. Mm-hmm. Like, he's eating cereal or some soup or something. His third one is always a 3 ball. He gets the 3 glasses like Steph Curry. So we don't really want to know how. Yeah, we don't really want to know how it goes after that.
And here's Simon Lizotte.
That might have been a foot fault.
Or it could have chopped down a tree. I'm not sure.
It's one of those. It looked to me, now I'm not sitting there, but it looked like his left foot was on the ground while his right foot was on the tee box. And if you remember last year, we saw Lizotte throw an absolutely insane roller to about 50 feet on this hole with a strong tailwind. Here's Oakley with that Raider forehand. Trying to throw a hyzer flip. He's gotten a lot of distance, but looks like he's kind of inside a group of trees there.
Have you ever seen that Jimmy Fallon, Jennifer Lopez skit of "Got my tight pants on"?
Yes.
Okay. I'll leave it there.
No more references needed. Here's Zach Melton throwing a Raider as well. And that's just a smooth hyzer for Zach. I think Zach has underrated power. He puts him out there pretty far. And for me, an extremely underrated forehand. He's gotten so smooth with that and has had to compete in some of the courses that are a little bit more right-handed dominant.
Yeah, somewhat surprising, I'll say, to see Ricky Wysocki rely on the backhand hyzer approach here off the tee.
If you play that way, you're basically deciding that you're going to play the right side of the fairway all the way down. Because from the right side of the fairway, it's incredibly difficult to access the left side of the green.
And it sounds as if Ricky may even have got caught up by some of the trees. Our cameramen weren't necessarily planning on seeing that shot and weren't in position for it, as we're trying to bring you a little bonus action here from the second card. And we're glad, again, that you are joining us here during our opening round of the 2019 Glassblown Open. Wysocki has gotten up and fired very quickly. Now, this is a forehand with plenty of power.
Oh, my goodness.
And Ricky was taking no time whatsoever to get up and throw that. Now, Ricky is traditionally a relatively fast player, but that time he stepped right up and threw almost immediately.
Yeah, and shots like that, especially when you hit an early tree, oftentimes you'll see that player, kind of like Johnny McCray earlier, just gets a maybe unleash some aggression or some, you know, maybe, I don't know, regrets about what just happened by just letting loose on that next shot. And I think that's what we see from Wysocki there, as that forehand probably traveled 450 feet easily, maybe 475.
Well, and Ricky, who had such a great start as he opened up this round, he started, I believe, with 6 birdies in a row. He was 7 under through 8, and then in the last 3 holes combined, he has gone a little stagnant, just effectively shooting par over the last 3 holes. So Ricky Wysocki would like to regain some of that opening momentum that he had, and Lizott's backhand roller still rolling, but not in the right direction or with quite enough distance.
Yeah, that's a tough spot for Lizotte. If anybody could get up and down from there, I would say he would be the guy for it. But now he's got, I don't know, 300 feet or so left to get up and down for his par 4.
And also running into, oh my goodness, hole 16, taking a bite out of Chris Dickerson today. Hole 15, I'm sorry, correction. On hole 16, he did take the bogey. Hole 17, Chris Dickerson with a double bogey 6.
Oh, no.
So after the tear that he started on 15 and 16 and 17, he has now gone 3 over par. And Dickerson still sits at 7 under. Very few people can say, well, you know, I've gone 3 strokes over par. I still sit at 7 under. But Chris Dickerson hopefully can finish strong on hole number 18. At best, though, he's looking at probably an 8 under, which likely will not be enough to push him to a lead card.
See Oakley throwing Raider from a knee here on that forehand. Wow, that was well executed. Looks like he found maybe the edge of the circle or just inside from that spot. I know that I get to watch Eric play a little bit more than most because of our team and sponsorship affiliation, but I've been really impressed by the power that he's been getting on his forehands lately. Trying to rein in some of that control and still push those Raiders is what he's throwing a lot right now, out to about that 400-foot mark with relative ease.
And as we've learned last year and in previous outings here at the country club, we for the most part have great signal throughout the entire course except for this particular hole. This seems to be one spot that just really challenges our cellular devices. We rely on those to give us the best possible signal. And, of course, the country club, for the most part, is a relatively open piece of property. There's just this one spot on this piece of property that doesn't really play nice with our equipment. And I'll tell you that now, and we'll probably politely remind you of that over the next 6 rounds. It's just something that we kind of have to fight through in this one particular spot. At least we know of it, and we'll try to do our best as we move forward with it.
That's right. Here we see Lizotte throwing a low forehand. That's settled inside circle 2, but he has those low-hanging branches to contend with, and that's a difficult spot on the course.
Yeah, it is. Well, as we said, a little bit difficult for both us on the technology side, and as well as Simon seems to be, I think, on tilt is a word that somebody might throw out there at this point. We're back with Ricky Wysocki here.
Looks like Wysocki hit the tree just on the right side on his way to the basket. That'll be around circle's edge. Once again, like I said on the FPO coverage, this is one of my favorite walks on the course. Nice downhill walk, white OB fence on the right side, golf green up and to your left, and really just the home stretch in front of you remaining on the course.
We'll see if we can maybe listen in as to some of the T-pad conversation.
I figured out that Baylor has like a food delivery service that delivers Torchies. So I got the Torchies delivered to my RV one morning, which was so clutch.
Why do we got to talk about Torchies right now? It's making me so very jealous. It's hurting my feelings.
I think we're good to go whenever.
Yeah.
Oh, McBeth getting feisty. You guys all heard it.
Yeah. Lay off, Paul.
Good. Yeah.
That's one thing that I have appreciated about this round. You can tell that our competitors are in good spirits, even if they haven't thrown their best shots all day. They're throwing some pretty good ones, but it seems like they're getting along well. Not much tension or contention amongst the players, really.
Yeah, no, everybody seems to be in really good spirits, as you just said. It's a beautiful day out here, about 70 degrees at the Emporia Country Club. And the first day of 4 that we're going to be out here at the Emporia Country Club with the glass blown open, moving to this 4-day format, not only giving it more golf and then having a cut and hoping for this huge gallery to be out here on Saturday, but also it's a little bit of a contingency plan. In the last few years, we've been challenged by the weather, not just at this event, but at other events. And a few years ago, when this event was cut short, it went from 3 rounds, and the winner was decided just after 2 rounds of action. And so I think Rusko and you and the rest of the crew, everybody, Doug Bjerkes and the PDGA, had said, well, maybe we should plan for 4, and if there were to be a day of inclement weather or a round that had to be postponed or canceled, that gives us a little bit more leeway, and I think that's part of why we arrived at 4 rounds.
Yeah, I think so as well. I would love to just see, though, 4 full rounds. Well, 3 full rounds and then the cut for the top 40% of the field. Let's hope it doesn't get to that.
I think your wish will be granted this year. 3 full rounds plus the cut.
All right, so this is another one of the Yukun-produced Discmania discs that Eagle is about to use for this roller. I do not remember the name of it right now, but it seemed very understable.
And we're expecting a roller here.
Yep, and rolling it is. That is out there, but behind the group of trees. Not quite the result he was looking for. That actually, you could tell just how understable that disc was. He started it on maybe 30 degrees of hyzer, and it was on a roller angle by the time it got to the ground. This looks to be a huge roller from AJ Risley with his Opto Havoc.
Notice the light left to right wind.
And that stood up a little bit more than AJ wants. Headed right, but should be safe over there. That's going to force his hand to play down the OB on the right side. All 3 of our first 3 competitors taking roller. I believe this is a Fury from Johnny McCray. And everyone, usually you can count on that left to right wind to kind of kick the bottom out of the disc and keep the roller on the angle you'd like, but right now it seems to be just shoving everything over to the right. And we're only going to go 3 for 4 on rollers here as McBeth goes with an air shot. And he has thrown quite the air shot. Air shot, it may not even be fair to call that an air shot because that just flew about 60 feet past most of the best tee shots you're going to see on this hole.
Here at Dynamic Discs, we want to help run your local tournament just like we've supported and sponsored hundreds of others around the world. We've got everything covered from custom stamped discs and players packs to CTPs and trophies. We have what it takes to help every player from novice to pro have a good time. It all starts with ordering from our website with discounted bulk pricing. We can take care of designing and stamping your custom disc. We'll even include rewards when your custom stamped order reaches a new tier. We have discounted prices on extras for players packs, CTPs, raffles, or any other side event. One of the best ways to get new people to your event is custom stamped apparel. When people see your tournament represented on the course, they won't want to miss the next one. We have Dymax trophy discs available, and we can even get any of our baskets custom wrapped. The newest addition to our sponsorship package is the Grow Disc Golf 5K 10K Ace Challenge. Each participant will have one chance at acing a hole, and their ace could be worth $10,000. If you're looking for an easy way to do payout, we can partner up for that too. TDs can avoid the hassle of payout and take advantage of our huge inventory by sending payout through dynamicdisc.com for a discounted price. We want to see your event grow, and we'll work with you to make your event the best it can be. So whether you're running a small C tier or looking for the next GBO, check out dynamicdisc.com or email sponsorship@dynamicdisc.com for everything you need.
Welcome back. We've got Johnny McCray throwing his second shot. And playing up that right side, keeping it very low.
Yeah,
and
that's
Eagle,
just protecting against the OB, I think.
And Eagle is literally just within a few feet of where we saw McCray throw from.
I'm kind of surprised to see Johnny not challenge that OB fence on the right side with kind of a big hyzer. But looks like he's just trying to play safe to guarantee that par 4 there. I do not think we'll see Eagle play safe here. Oh, wow, he's going to go through the trees on a flex forehand line and contend with the low branches in front of him and the low branches near the basket. Eagle not necessarily pleased with his effort, but he gets a few claps. Unsure if AJ Risley has settled out of bounds or not. Yeah, if that line is straight, it looks like he has settled out of bounds. Unfortunate break for Risley. Quite a bit of applause from an adjacent fairway, and AJ takes a moment to show his appreciation for that applause that was clearly for him. Oh, man. That guy cracks me up. AJ's gone with a criminal here. That was intended for the right side of the basket, or right side of the tree. It's found the left side, and there is OB over there as well. It's hard to know if he's found that OB or not.
And it looks like he's come up just outside of the...
Yeah, it looks like he's on the wrong side of the OB there.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so well, everyone else gets into position. I'm looking at Joel Freeman. Again, still your leader. I know we've been saying that for quite some time. Joel's got to be... he's just sitting there, probably maybe relaxing, maybe even just down the hallway from us here at the clubhouse at the Emporia Country Club, or maybe sitting poolside back at his hotel. But right now, McCray and McMahon, with their 8 unders, are tied along with Simon Lizotte and Cale LaVisca and Drew Gibson are all tied at 8 under for that second place position. So it's going to be really interesting to see how things shake out over these next few holes. Who's going to push themselves onto a lead card for tomorrow's second round, and who will we find on that chase card? Wysocki sits just one back of that group at 7 under, along with Paul McBeth.
McBeth is in prime position, A1 scoring position at this point. He's got both the forehand and backhand options to approach the basket. He's got his zone in hand for this approach. And he leaves that shot just a bit high. That'll be just outside the circle for his look at birdie 3.
Man is lining up what will be a forehand approach shot here on hole number 14.
And he's throwing a hyzer flip on that forehand.
For the eagle here on hole number 14. Very impressive. Eagle McMahon has had such great success here in the few years he's been at the Glass Blown Open. I recall watching him as he was on Smashbox a couple of years ago, and then having my first interview with him. And as a kid who has pretty much played in Colorado, to have him come and then travel to an event of this size and then perform on the largest stage, and at such a young age, it may have only been 16 or 17 at the time, and everyone wondered, would he crack under the pressure? And Eagle McMahon has now, of course, gone on to be one of the top professionals in our game. I believe for a moment he may have had the highest rating of all of our players just a few ratings updates ago. Clearly, he's got all the skills, and many would say he is definitely the future and the next generation here of our elite players.
And as we said, we apologize for our choppy cell signal out here, as McMahon will not be able to find the bottom of the basket and will likely settle for his par 4. AJ's disc has flown out of bounds, so this will be his putt for bogey 5 after only throwing 3 shots. That's a tough way to play the hole. It's not much fun when your score doesn't reflect the work that you've done, or maybe it does and it just hurts to look at it. And Risley's bid just low. It's going to be a double bogey 6 for him. That'll move him back to 1 over par. Back to Paul McBeth here, just outside the circle for his birdie. McBeth converts. It would have honestly been a shame if he didn't take the birdie here after such a phenomenal drive. But that's going to move McBeth into a tie with McMahon and McCray at that 8-under score. Only the home stretch to go. We've got some separator holes in front of us. But I think your prediction of having at least 2 of our players in double digits is still intact at this point.
We've got a fresh new tee pad and a great looking shot here on hole 15. Set us up for it, Robert.
438 feet. This hole plays almost identical to how it has in years past, but you have better footing on the tee. You've got better texture on the concrete, as well as the old tee kind of had a little bit of a downslope at the end. So 438 feet. This place is a huge hyzer for most of our competitors. 2.96 scoring average, the 13th most difficult hole in the course today. There's really only one line that we're going to see our competitors throw unless they're left-handed, and that's a big hyzer out over that fairway, that golf fairway that's out of bounds. Skipping up toward the basket. We nearly saw some fireworks here last year from Drew Gibson as he splashed a lot of chains and ultimately did not stick for that ace. But coming down the stretch, I think there's going to be a lot of people putting this drive very close to the basket. While this is a long shot, this feels once again kind of like a birdie that you really need to get, as we see a little bit over a quarter of our field taking birdie here, 27%.
All right, well, usually the exchange of 16, 17, and 18 can somewhat slow things down. We have a little bit of congestion. Now we know that 17 has been changed up in the last few years. We'll see how that affects the actual speed of play and what that's going to mean for us. Hole 16 as well. I mean, you can have anywhere from 4 to 24 shots take place on that island green. So right. As we move into these last few holes, the players are looking at a 2-hour and 45-minute round at this point, and we'll see how everyone's feeling this afternoon, and also a little bit of a light breeze as we're seeing on the dynamic disc feather banner.
Yeah, McBeth with a force here, playing that hyzer side, expertly judged. A little bit of an unfortunate roll for him, but that'll settle right around the circle's edge, maybe 30 to 35 feet. They do have a bit of helping wind coming off of their right shoulder now, so these guys can swing the disc even wider to the right than they did in practice. I would assume this is a PD2 from McMahon, though I wasn't able to see right when he threw it.
I think that's a pretty safe assumption for almost all of his drives.
That's right. He's rolling with the DD3 now as well, but something like this hyzer I think is a PD2 for him. That looks to be 25 to 30 feet. McCray going with the West Side Discs Giant yet again. He swung that out beautifully and brought it into 25 feet. Risley will be last to throw with his Lucid Enforcer here. Or pardon me, this may be the Lucid Raider. Big hyzer from Risley going long of the basket. That is safe long, but I don't think he expected to be long at all.
He gave a little shrug to the camera, and we're going to move down the fairway. We'll be back in a moment.
Passion is more than fiery emotion. It feeds the spark to start your day. It fuels your obsessions. It inspires your dreams. Passion challenges your fears, and it repeatedly bathes you in sweat until you are transformed into a new, better you. Disc golf isn't just your passion, it's ours too.
Dymax is a process where we can take just about any image and put it on a disc. We can Dymax your next tournament, a trophy disc, or even your wedding.
Can we Dymax our love?
Well, yeah, we can Dymax that.
What about a dog surfing on a pizza drinking root beer?
That's a toughie. Actually, no, it's not. We can Dymax that. Find out more about all the things that we can put on a disc at dynamicdiscs.com/Dymax.
And the PDGA very anxiously and excitedly bringing you a little word at this national tour stop. We'll get that adjusted for the next time that we hear it. We'd like to thank you guys for joining us. Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, along with Robert McCall. We're here for the opening round, 1 round out of 4 rounds, and we're nearing this opening round, nearing the conclusion of it. So thank you for joining us. We'll be here tomorrow, 9 a.m., We're going to be covering FPO lead card. We talked about that a little bit earlier. We'll be giving you all the shot-by-shot there, and then we'll be back here at 3 p.m., both Central Time. We'll be covering the MPO lead card. Robert, you're taking on even additional role beyond sitting next to me for all these hours. You're also going to call some shots for post-production on Joe Mez. Is that correct?
That's right. AJ Risley and I will be on post-production commentary for the MPO 2 card today. And I'm excited to get to work with them, and you know I like AJ pretty well, so that's going to be pretty fun too. We see Risley just right at the basket after going long on his drive here.
Oh, and McBeth knew it right out of his hand that was a little left. McBeth seems really frustrated after missing that birdie putt.
McMahon capitalizes on his drive, moves to 9 under par with 3 holes to go.
McMahon creeping closer to that 11 under that we see by Joel Freeman.
McCray keeping pace as well as he moves to 9 under. McBeth looming at 8 under just behind.
Interestingly enough, we very well could see 3 out of the 4 same players return for tomorrow's round. As of right now, that's what we're looking at. We've got Joel Freeman in the lead, McCray and McMahon both at 9, and McBeth sits one off the pace at 8 under. Simon Lizotte also sits at 8. The famous hole 16. Wow.
One of the best holes on the course, certainly the signature hole on the course. The men's tee plays 383 feet. You must land safely on the island to move to the island, and we've moved the pin from the middle of the island to the back right portion. In years past, if you landed on the island, it was almost guaranteed that you got a birdie too, or at least a really good putt at it. But now with this basket on the back portion of the island, it's that's no guarantee anymore, and I think that's kind of changing the way that some players look at this hole. I've seen a few more layups, but if you can convert here, I think that's going to be a huge advantage for you, as we see only 10% of the MPO field taking birdie twos here today, coming in at the 4th most difficult hole on the course, 3.64 scoring average today.
Well, it's a shot that you really have to be 100% committed to.
You do.
You don't walk up and say, well, I'm not really sure what I'm doing here. You're either laying up or you are going for it. A little earlier during one of our live feeds, we saw Cal LaVisca was the only guy on his card, for instance, to lay up. Walked away with the 3, relatively easy. Everyone else went for it. Everyone else OB.
That's right.
And walked away with bogeys at best. So this is a make-or-break hole for your round.
That's right. And the difficulty of this island, too, is that there's only about 20-ish or 25 feet that you can safely land this disc. If you land on the flat part of the green, more than likely it's skipping off the back. So you almost have to hit the front half of the green, in order to have your disc kind of check and stop there. This plays exceptionally difficult for our competitors. And at 383 feet, when you walk up to it, it feels like you could just throw a mid-range or maybe a light fairway driver. And almost everybody who steps up with one of those discs ends up short. I think we're going to see, if anything, a fully committed mid-range from some of our players who have that extra distance, or fairway drivers are, I think, going to be the option for most of the players trying to attack the green. This is Eagles PD2. In fact, this one became famous by going over all the trees on the right side on a huge hyzer and landing safe right when he needed it. It looks like he's trying to replicate that effort right now. Wind doesn't look like it's much to speak of. If anything, a bit of tail left to right wind.
That is pushing toward the left or left center portion of the green.
Oh my goodness. How does that happen?
Oh,
First he gets an incredibly fortunate break by hitting the tree. Most of the time that lands safe right there, and he's got a 25 or 30 footer, while still a scary putt inbounds. But instead that disc stays on edge and rolls all the way back off the side of the island. He'll be headed to the drop zone and probably looking at 4 at best.
So Eagle McMahon, who started this hole at 9 under, like you were just mentioning, at best is likely going to walk away with a bogey 4 and probably move off at 8 under. Alyssa Van Lanen getting into her shot, but meanwhile we're waiting.
None of our competitors getting into their shots. It looks like they're waiting for spectators to pass by.
As we see Johnny McCray now enter the frame.
I just heard Johnny say, "I don't know if I can throw it there." It looks like he actually has a putter in his hand. That's one of his shields in his right hand, and that may be a keystone in the other. I'm not 100% positive. If anybody could get a putter there, Johnny McCray would be a great candidate for it. But
looks like he's laying up to this right-hand side.
The way he's lining up, certainly. Easy safe shot there. That'll be a touch putter approach for his par 3. Here's one person who isn't laying up, Paul McBeth. Looks like he's got a couple of buzzes that he's going to choose between. This is drifting right for McBeth. If it finishes, it's got a good chance.
Oh, not enough.
Not quite enough disc.
Just not enough power from McBeth. It was going towards the skinniest portion of the landing zone, so I'm not sure that it would have hit and stayed there, but just not enough power is all I can really say to that.
That's right. AJ opting for the layup here. I believe this is a Bard he's throwing. But yeah, like I said, if you opt for the mid-range here, you have to get all of it. It is a fully committed 380-foot shot. I guess to reach the edge of the island, you have to throw it about 360. And you can take maybe one little skip off the water with a mid-range, but if it doesn't have that sharp edge, they're a lot less likely to get the skip and hop up onto the island.
Well, and for a moment, what I really want to bring that full circle to is the conversation about having the power that some of our players have and what it kind of advantage that can give them. Now, 383 feet, most of the players in this tournament can reach a 383-foot hole.
Right.
However, someone like a Paul McBeth or a Johnny McCray or a Simon Lizotte or an Eagle, any of them, they can throw either putter or mid-range to get to this basket. And when they do, if they can be on point with it, it's going to be able to land relatively flat, probably not have much skip, and they'll be able to control the flight pattern so much easier. Someone like myself, I can throw 383 on a great day, but that's a full flexing power shot, and probably getting a skip away with some form of wide rim driver. So the 383 to them and 383 to me are still very different, even if we can both still get there.
That's right, and I'm right in the middle of those. This is probably about a 90% fairway driver for me, something that's nice and controllable straight. But it's still by no means an easy shot to get onto the green. We see AJ push the water a lot more than I think we could see off the tee, but he is safe. He's going to be throwing his deputy on this approach here. That looked like it had a little too much speed out of his hand, but he judged it perfectly. That'll be a par 3 for Risley. And it looks like McCray is in about the same distance, maybe 10 or 15 feet away.
And now we're going to have from the drop zone, Eagle McMahon. I said drop zone, not drop frame.
Yeah, a couple more cell signal issues as we're here. And a quick putt from the drop zone for McBeth. You can tell he's not too pleased with his effort there.
Look like a few Easter eggs were left out there here on hole number 16's green, and retrieval by, I believe that's Discmania team manager Jeff, helping out Eagle. And by no means do we have an easy walk-in on 17 and 18.
No.
There's still plenty of golf to be played here, and this is kind of a little bit of a gut check. You know, you're thinking about, oh man, I should have just laid that hole up. You know, you wonder if McBeth or McMahon are thinking, why didn't I just lay it up? It's an easy 3 all day. Or maybe they're fine with the commitment that they had and they just know they didn't execute. But meanwhile, Risley and Johnny McCray, who just tapped in, are going to walk away with a 3, a no-stress 3. And their spirits are going to be still probably riding pretty high because they did exactly what they wanted to do. They had a game plan. They executed it, and they picked up a stroke on McBeth and McMahon.
That's right. And as they head into, like you said, not easy closing holes. Holes 17 and 18 are playing as the most difficult and 6th most difficult on the hole on the course, respectively. AJ taking a little extra time to tap in there.
Don't get too fancy there, AJ.
But yeah, having the correct mindset going into these holes, I think, is imperative to finishing the round well.
It really is. So we move over to hole 17, 806 feet.
This is a new basket for our MPO competitors. We have Amando on the right side that we're just passing now, and then Amando a little bit farther up on the left. OB on the left side, tall grass on OB, and the golf fairway to the right as well. We also have an OB golf green with the OB line actually quite a ways off of the golf green. We've got the FPO basket is the one that you can see in frame right now, and then another maybe 80 or 90 feet to the right is the MPO basket. This forces our MPO players, unless they throw some sort of miracle drive, they're going to have to go over the OB green all the way and carry past a couple of trees to get a look. The OB is actually, so there are fence, I guess, little signs around the green, but the OB is probably 15 feet actually past that. So visually it can be a little deceptive to carry the shot as far as you need to get past that OB and safe.
Well, they have plenty of challenge for these last two holes. A little earlier today, we saw the PDGA media put out a great piece. Steve Hill from the PDGA was kind of breaking down hole 16. So I know they just completed it, but we have a backup on 17. So we'd like to play for you the PDGA media piece and see what some of the players were thinking about as they approached hole 16. Here's Steve Hill with the PDGA media.
Every course has its signature hole, one that can inspire awe just as easily as it can induce heartbreak. Here at the Emporia Country Club, that's hole 16. Clocking in at 383 feet, this iconic island has serious turning point potential, whether it's at the World Championships or here at the Dynamic Disc Glass Blown Open. And nobody knows that better than defending champion Eagle McMahon.
I was last on the tee pad, which was a gift from the disc golf gods. Had a great left to right wind, which meant that if I threw a high hyzer shot, the left to right wind is going to push the hyzer straight. So it was a perfect opportunity to throw a PD2 onto the island and get 2 strokes on both of them to get the lead with 2 holes to play. And yeah, it was really exciting, and my adrenaline levels were very high at that time.
With an extra day on the schedule, that means 1 more crack at the island. And for the women's division, it's actually 4 more, as the FPO field plays here at the Country Club every day this week.
200-something foot hole, I'm not thinking I'm ever going to get outside the circle, and that's really what this island is, but it adds a whole nother element, and especially late in the game, you know, hole 16 coming down the stretch, so it's quite intimidating, I would say. I will be laying this one up, actually. I believe so. If there's no wind or I'm down and I need some strokes, I might be going for it.
That's the real question this week. Play it safe or go on the attack.
Hole 16, laying up every time.
I'm laying up. I'll take 4 pars in this hole, and I'll be running it every time unless there's a headwind.
No matter what decision players make, you'll be able to see it all go down live this week on SmashBoxxTV. And with 5 cards of post-production, instant scoring from UDisc, and recaps here at PDGA Media, we'll have everything you need from the second stop on the PDGA National Tour. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, everyone. Again, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, along with Robert McCall. And Robert, we just a moment offline, a moment ago, we were talking about the kind of the stall that can happen as you round that corner. You get to 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18, all of which can provide a backup. And your perfect response was?
I didn't design the course.
Well, no, besides that.
Oh, okay.
Besides throwing EMAC under the bus. No, your perfect response was that's just what happens when you have really difficult holes to finish out on.
That's exactly
And that's part of what's proving this challenge for our competitors out here, but also part of what makes everything so exciting out here at the country club is there's so much that can happen in these last few holes. There are no guarantees. There's no walking it in. Every single one, especially when you think about hole 16,
Right.
you know, you have that really that moment. Am I going for it? Am I laying up, as some of our players just talked about with the PDGA media? And then 17 and 18, still some work to do.
Yeah, and man, these two closing holes, 17 with a new basket is, gosh, just so much more difficult than before. We saw guys just overpower hole 17 last year, throw, 500, 550-foot drives down there and just have a chip shot into that old basket. But with a new basket and the removal of you can't throw the big hyzer now because of that new Mando. I think this is playing as an extremely difficult hole as we see so many people going up the middle and then trying to get aggressive to get their three and finish the round on a high note, what did I say? It's playing as the most difficult hole. Yeah, the most difficult hole relative to par today. 4.88 scoring average. Only 13% of the MPO field, which is 17 players, taking birdie. 32% taking par. So more than half of the field taking bogey or worse on this hole. And I feel like that just takes the wind out of your sails for hole 18, which should be an easy enough three for most of our top competitors.
Well, it looks like they're ready to go, so we're going to cut back to the action. This is bonus, exclusive coverage coming to you here on SmashBoxxTV. We've got Zach Melton, the highest-rated lefty in the game, on the tee. And Zach finds himself in what I would think is a really good position that sets up well for him as a left-handed player. He's pushed just past that 400-foot marker, so he's probably about 390 to the pin at that point.
Yeah, I believe that was a getaway there for Melton, so not trying to bite off all the distance, just really controlling his distance. This looks like a wide rim, so I would bet this is a PD2 for Simon. He lands in a similar spot to Melton, just to the left. It's likely that Ricky has the destroyer in his hand here. And Ricky has gotten a full pull, but hit a branch and drop straight down. Last to tee will be Oakley with the Fusion Raider. Oakley has
a smash.
Put a hurting on that Raider right there. That's going to give him a pretty straight shot and a really good birdie opportunity from being that far up the fairway. That was, color me impressed.
Well, let's talk just a little bit about the scores, and then I want to ask a little bit about the Raider. Sorry, Joel Freeman still your leader. Johnny McCray right now sits at that 9 under par. He's in second place. Simon Lizotte, who we just watched tee a moment ago, along with Eagle McMahon, Cale Aviska, Drew Gibson, all in a tie for third. Drew and Cale both in the clubhouse. Nate Sexton appears to be lurking somewhere around where we are right now, too. It says that he's through hole 16, so he might be in a little bit of a backup on the tee of 17. And then McBeth, Wysocki, and Calvin Heimberg, who's also on 16. Fair to say, there's not a single name in those top 10 or so guys that surprise you at this point.
No, I don't think so at all. I think maybe the biggest surprise, and it's not even a really big one, is Joel Freeman. We've seen him over the last couple of years now. I guess if you go back a full calendar year, kind of the first time that we saw Joel's name on the big stage was at Vegas when he came out. I believe he got second or third at that event last year, and since has been putting together some incredible rounds, popping off what seemed like endless birdie streaks. But otherwise, I mean, we've got a lot of familiar names at the top of the leaderboard, and if Joel continues to play the way that he has the last year, I think we'll continue to see him there as well.
and we're watching someone run up the fairway. Not sure if that is. Either way, what I do want to ask is they're running around on the fairway, maybe doing laps. I'm not sure.
Just trying to stay warm.
Yeah, just doing a little wind sprints. Let's talk about the Raider.
Yeah, let's.
Like what? There's been obviously a lot of hype surrounding it. Released very recently. What does everyone need to know about that disc?
All right, if you haven't tried out the Raider yet, I'm just going to tell you right now you're missing out. I love the Raider for the spot that it fills in our lineup. In the dynamic disc lineup, the Raider is pretty much, in stability terms, right in between the defender and the trespass, and so it's something that a lot of bigger arm players, they got a little bit too much arm speed to throw the trespass with consistency. It has a little too much high speed turn for them, and then the defenders usually come out relatively overstable, so you have to work them in a little bit to get even a little bit of turn. They like to fly straight and then hook hard at the end. Well, the Raider fills that spot perfectly. It's got a little bit of high-speed turn, and then it's got some good fade, and it's a kind of a forward-pushing fade. So we've seen it replace a lot. For me, it replaced a lot of my kind of slightly overstable to slightly understable drivers, just because it's so easy to throw straight and to rely on. It's a bomber, absolute bomber in a tailwind, and I've been loving it for forehands. I know that, like I've said, Eric Oakley has been getting all kinds of power out of it, where previously he would kind of force an enforcer over on Anheuser on a forehand. Now he can throw that Raider on a hyzer and get equal distance, or maybe 30 more feet or so. So yeah, if you haven't tried out the Raider, we released them recently. Be on the lookout for those. We had the hybrid Raider as the Stamp Your Own Player Pack disc here at GBO, and we've heard rave reviews about those. So we've got Fusion Raiders available at dynamicdiscs.com right now. Hybrid Raiders only available at GBO, and eventually we'll have Lucid Raiders out as well.
Everything I needed to know.
There you go.
Thank you. We do appreciate that. We also appreciate everyone from the Trilogy family, Dynamic Discs, Latitude 64, and Westside, as we're watching Simon Lizotte get into position here. Looks like he's about to throw his second shot.
Lizotte goes with a towering Anheuser.
He's got his hands on his head.
I assume that means he didn't turn it as much as he wanted to, and that could find the OB line that's long, which is the cart path behind these baskets. I see in the chat here, Maker says that he thinks that the Raider is like a glidey destroyer, and it's drawn some comparisons to the destroyer for the feel in the hand as well as the flight and stability. Next throw will be Zach Melton. This is an enforcer that he's throwing on forehand here. This is working back toward the basket. He needs a little bit of skip on that. Gets some applause from the crowd, and a clear 40 feet in front of the remaining competitors is Eric Oakley after that smash drive with the Raider. Right on cue, Eric. Thanks, man.
That a boy.
That's left him with a mid-range approach to this basket on this over 800-foot hole. It's hard to see just where that finished, but Eric seems moderately pleased with the result.
I feel like that would be an appropriate time to actually ask, is that good?
Yeah,
because
this
really
is probably
not
a
sure.
good time to ask. We can really tell.
As we look back and see everyone on the tee of hole number 17.
That's the first non-rhetorical "is that good" I've heard in a while, so thank you for bringing that to light.
Not much wind to speak of with the flags. We've talked a little bit about the weather and what we're going to see over the next few days. Mid to high 70s. It might be a little bit gusty tomorrow. Upwards of 22 miles per hour is what I saw on the forecast. And then I think I saw a similar forecast for Saturday with a calm day being on Friday. we'll see how that all pans out. As you said, most of our players, when you come to Kansas, when you come to Emporia, whether it's the Glass Blown or any other event, you really are expecting some form of win. So today, great scoring conditions and a day that you could go out and really just throw the shots that you want to throw, and you don't have to account too much for the wind, as we see McCray and the rest of the scores still holding strong where we discussed them a few minutes ago.
Yeah, days like today are certainly an anomaly in Emporia, Kansas. We love to take advantage of them when we can. In the background, you can see A.J. Risley twirling one of his discs, it looked like on a pole of some type. He's just enjoying the day. Not having his best round, but still enjoying his time.
And this is McCray with the honors.
And this is a giant for Johnny. He needs that to sit down. It's curled up to the left. It's hard to tell if that is settled in bounds or not. AJ plays the smooth turnover. That's going to find the left side of the fairway and give him that big Anheuser access to the screen. Eagle McMahon with his PD just catches a low-hanging branch.
I believe that's a PD he's throwing.
That's right.
That's a little in-the-bag research I did before the round.
Is that right?
Yep.
It definitely wasn't that you heard me say it right when he threw it?
No.
Okay, good. Yeah, I didn't think so.
Or the stamp right there.
Yeah, either one.
Just trying to help you out here, Robert.
Thanks, man. You're a nice guy. McBeth covering quite the distance on his drive. The only man, I might get in trouble here. The only disc I remember being that color in his bag that wasn't a Force was a DGA Tsunami. So,
and that very well could have been it.
Been.
I've seen McBeth throw those on a number of lines where he doesn't want quite the hyzer finish that we see with a Force. It's almost as if it's a beat-up one for him. I saw him throwing that very well in Tallahassee a few weeks ago. Robert, as we're just about to round out the day, close things out, we encourage everyone, if you're in Emporia or near Emporia, or maybe you're watching this on the local television station here in Emporia, thank you to ValueNet Fiber. There's activities and things taking place every single day, every single night, in fact. I believe tonight there may be even a comedy show that's lined up at the Granada. Does that sound about right, at 8 o'clock?
That's right. We do have a comedy show tonight. That's going to be presented by KISS 103.1 and 99.5 ESPN. We've heard that, they're asking a couple of questions about disc golf. They're going to integrate that some into their routine. And so if you're trying to get some of the local jargon in here, you might catch some of it there. Who knows? We're not sure just yet.
Okay.
We also have the final round of the GBO Mini Disc Golf Tournament taking place tonight in the Bourbon Cowboy. That starts at 7 p.m. You do have to have qualified for that tournament by going to the Bourbon Cowboy and competing there. In fact, we've gotten really official with the Mini Disc Golf Tournament there, and we have that tournament has their own glass-blown trophies for the event. It's pretty serious.
Yes, very serious.
You could say things are getting pretty serious.
And the Bourbon Cowboy has been such a supportive entity over these last few years. Every time that I recall coming here, we've done some live podcasts from there. We've also done the mini golf, as you've talked about, and they've run, I think Doug Bjerkes may have rode a bull last year, mechanical bull.
That did happen. I would assume he won't this year because it probably injured him last year. Who knows?
Well, but make sure you check that out. And again, thank you to the Bourbon Cowboy and all of the Emporia area businesses that have openly welcomed each and every one of us when we're talking about 1,600 plus disc golfers and friends and family.
McMahon playing the forehand. He was pinched up against that tree, so had to kind of step just on, catch the very, very left side of the disc from his perspective. And looks like he's thrown a great shot up by the spotter who gives him the green flag. That should leave him a relatively easy approach for his par 4.
Looks like the sun is trying to set. I was going to say trying to lower. That would be really insightful, but I guess saying that it's setting is about the same.
You see, the sun is moving down in the sky.
Almost as if it's trying to hide from us here in Emporia.
That's right.
Emporia. I'm not a fan of that.
See AJ Risley on the left side of the fairway. Shedding the shades, setting up for quite the rip. This is a criminal that he's got in his hand. And I don't know if AJ knows this, but that is out of bounds. There is, as I said, between those two trees, there's a decent bit of distance that you have to cover past the green in order to land in bounds, and he has not covered that distance whatsoever. That's it's an extremely aggressive shot, but at this point, I think AJ is probably thinking he really needs to catch strokes wherever he can.
Yeah, as we have seen, he has not kept up with the pace. As we're watching McBeth at 7, McMahon at 8, and McCray at 9. Some very impressive play. We may be looking at 3 of the 4 hottest scores, or maybe even the 3 hottest scores when it's all said and done. I'm not sure there's enough math for that, but some very solid play here by this card. So tough for anyone to keep up with what we've seen here. And AJ's had some pretty good spirits about him, but not quite the day he hoped for as we were opening up this 2019 Glass Blown Open.
That's right. As we've arrived at Johnny's drive, it looks like he did finish out of bounds, so he'll be throwing his 3rd shot here. This is an enforcer for McCray. Oh, and that has gone OB long. Oh, no. What a brutal result.
And McCray, as you see, with his hands on his knees there and a look of frustration or disappointment as that one just carried out of bounds.
McBeth instantly disappointed with his effort. That's safe, and it's inside the circle, but it's certainly right of where he was aiming. And we can see now that it was a force that McBeth threw off the box there.
And I've also been notified by the internet that the sun was not going down on us. It is, in fact, the Earth that is rotating and the sun.
Yeah, thanks, Bill Nye. We appreciate that insight.
Well,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
No, and I'm good with being corrected because that is
know.
the proper way to look at it.
Come on.
Although it has been a long day for Robert and I as
Yes.
we are rounding out what could be upwards of our 8th hour, 7.5 hours of commentating here in the booth. Thanks for sticking with us. Whether you like it or not, you'll be stuck with us all week long here for the live commentary.
That's a good hyzer from AJ. That's his 4th shot, so he'll have that for his bogey 5.
as we take a look at UDisc, we'll have to start thinking about what we may see unfold here for tomorrow's lead card. Robert, what do you think we're looking at here? As I know we have to wrap up 17, and of course we still have 18 to play, but what do you think we're going to see?
Yeah, as we're coming down the stretch here, it looks like I'm going to stand corrected. Joel Freeman is going to retain his round 1 lead, going out early in the day and carding a 11 under par 54, carding only 3 pars and 2 bogeys on the day. The quick math means that he carded 13 birdies today. Incredible stuff from Joel. Johnny McCray is going to be taking bogey at best on this hole, so he will at least move back to 8 under par, if not 7. Eagle McMahon looks like he's going to secure his par, and then we've got 2 clubhouse 8-unders in Cale LaVisca and Drew Gibson. Cale LaVisca will get the nod if it comes down to that because of his lower PDGA number. So it looks like we might have 1 or 2 of our competitors on the card tomorrow. If McBeth can convert for birdie here, he will move into 8 under par, and he'll have a shot to be on that lead card as well. And I was mistaken earlier. It looked like McBeth's approach was inside circle 1, but the flags that we saw were actually those circle 2 flags. So this is right around a 60-footer for McBeth.
And again, you just can never count out Paul McBeth from really any distance, and he does it with such a calm demeanor. Let's take another look at that, Robert.
You know, in the NBA when they say, come on, man, and it's always about stuff that was like a blunder, what's the opposite of that? Because that's how I feel watching McBeth make that putt. It's just like, for some reason, when he walks up to those, you feel like he's going to make it. Maybe I guess he's made them a bunch of times, but incredible stuff from McBeth. That birdie will move him into a tie for 3rd place as it stands right now with Cale LaVisca and Drew Gibson. Oh, and Eagle McMahon. Pardon me. Johnny converts, only throwing 3 shots on the hole, but finding the out of bounds twice. He will be forced to settle for a bogey 5. He will also move back into that tie at 8 under for the day. Risley's putt is in. He's certainly disappointed with the result on this hole and had a tough day, but holding himself together well. And McMahon is in for par. We see that the most difficult hole on the course today, hole 17, has shown its teeth. We'll move on over to hole 18, 673 feet. Most mortals and good disc golfers will take this shot straight to the landing zone to the left of the FPO tee. Says 250 feet to clear. Once you land up here, you'd like to land kind of on the top of the hill that the drone is over right now. That'll give you a straight approach to this basket. You're going to have some speed control coming into this basket because the green does run away from the player's perspective. Now, that's for most mortal disc golfers. I have heard that in practice, Eagle McMahon took a huge hyzer out over 16's island green and landed safe up in the fairway, short of where the drone is right now, but with an incredibly easy 3. And I hope so bad
that we're going to see that.
Yes.
You'd like
so
to see that.
much.
All right. Robert would like to be entertained. We hope that we have been at least somewhat entertaining throughout this entire day for you as we are coming to the final hole of our opening round here at the 2019 Glass Blown Open presented by Dynamic Disc. Robert and myself, Terry Miller, it's been a really fun day. We've watched a lot of really good golf. And even on the days that we don't watch players perform at their absolute best or at their absolute peak, there's so much to still be learned. How do you recover? How do you move on to that next hole after a bogey or a double bogey or triple bogey or whatever the case might be? How do you maintain that composure? Those are all things I think you can learn so much by watching our players of course, some players do it better than others.
That's
some
right.
players really seem to struggle with that composure, and other players, you may not even know they're having a bad day when they're out on the course. I think there's a lot to be said and a lot to be learned of that. And I think we saw a few struggles on the FPO side. We've seen, namely, AJ Risley struggle here on the MPO side. And you said it as he was putting out on 17. Still maintains that composure and that upbeat attitude.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like you said, I think there's a lot that you can learn about a person, and that you as a spectator and a competitor can learn from keeping your composure when things aren't going your way. You know, if you look back in our round earlier today, we see Paul McBeth, who's tied for second as it stands right now, went birdie, birdie, bogey, and I would say an unforced error for that bogey on hole 3, taking that hyzer out over the cart path, not skipping it back in bounds. There are competitors everywhere that would have just been derailed at that point and lost their composure. And instead, he regathered himself, birdied the next 3, and he's been playing well since. So, yeah, I think there's certainly something to be said for watching somebody struggle and then knowing that they can bounce back from it.
Well, it looks like we have Simon Lizotte throwing his second shot here. A little more bonus coverage. Tough to tell just how wet the ground was there and if that impacted any of his run-up or his stance. Ricky trying to run defense on us.
By the applause, I think that was a pretty good shot from Simon. The hyzer, once you cross over by the women's tee, is pretty much wide open, and I think we're going to see a lot of our competitors play short over here instead of blasting up the hill like we've seen in years past. It opens up this pretty easy hyzer for these guys.
Ricky playing the backhand. Looked like a pretty good angle. He has his hands up, then running defense on his own shot. So
At least he doesn't discriminate.
Yes, he doesn't. Ricky trying to block us from all the sweet action that you're taking in. I'll say it again, tomorrow we'll be back with you at 3 p.m. for the MPO lead card, and of course we'll also be back at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time in all cases as we bring you the FPO lead card. Katrina Allen is your leader over on the FPO side. She has a 3-stroke advantage as she moves in to round number 2. Katrina Allen, a previous champion here at the Glassblown Open. She's had success, maybe even multiple times, I'd like to say. It seems fitting that she's probably won this more than once. I'm just going to assume that she has. I think that's a fair statement for Katrina with someone of her skill set. Katrina's mom, for instance, has also been out on the board. We've had a number of parents and people tuned in, logged in, watching, and super chatting and just being supportive today. So thank you to everyone out there who's done just that. We love hearing the instantaneous feedback. If we're wrong, maybe you could tell us. Maybe you should probably tell us if we're wrong from time to time. But it's been such a great experience here as we've opened up this second stop on the PDGA National Tour.
Yeah, that's true. And like Terry said, please do join us at 9 a.m. I know that we're seeing the top MPO competitors right now, but as we guessed earlier, Katrina Allen's 60 did end up being 10.03 rated.
Okay.
So putting together quite the round and putting herself out to a 3-shot lead. We'll see how that unfolds over the next 3 rounds of competition, as right now we see Zach Melton with that smooth forehand approaching the green. A little bit of skip to the left side that he might not have wanted, but...
Yeah, you were talking about that earlier, that Zach Melton's forehand quite possibly is underrated. And I have to speak to that for a moment in that it was a couple of years ago I was on a card where I was filming Zach for the first time. It was the first time ever. It was a post-production ordeal with the disc golf guy, and I watched him play this round, and he had, whatever the course was, he had to throw a number of forehands.
Right.
And I couldn't believe just how good he was of a forehand throw. I had no idea because this was the first time I was watching him play, and he just threw perfect forehand after forehand after forehand, and just impressed me from day one, that very first time I actually watched him compete. So we'll see how he's going to fare. We have Simon Lizotte is putting for the birdie on hole 18, as is Ricky Wysocki. Melton's going to be putting for birdie on from circle 2 as well. And here's Paul McBeth. Oh, and that is low.
This is dreadfully low for McBeth. Wow, it almost stays out by the cart path, but somehow finds its way over and just safe. And he's actually going to be in a pretty good spot there for a big hyzer. That does open the angle for the big hyzer over the trees for him. And, you know, I understand this from a competitive standpoint by Eagle just playing the safe forehand, but I will say from a spectator and a fan, I'm extremely disappointed. I thought we were going to see the big hyzer. It's okay. Maybe if he has to have it in the last round. Eagle with the big forehand playing over by the women's tee. He has skipped a long way up there, even beating that water's edge. You might have a weird lie from there with some of the low-hanging branches and bushes between those trees. McCray going back to that giant, just playing kind of the traditional route. He'll have a straight look from there.
And you actually can push deep and find the out of bounds there. Now he's short of that by at least 30, if not 40 feet. But that is a concern. Some people may think, okay, well, I really want to make sure that I get it over there, that I don't even bring the water into play as McBeth did. But if you push too far deep, you can find that OB.
That's right, and last to play will be A.J. Risley with his Raider. We have a little bit of skip in our frames there, but by the applause, it sounds like AJ's drive is past the water and in a good spot to approach the green. Maybe in a similar spot to where Eagles ended up.
We're watching as our feature card is coming across the cart path there. What a beautiful finishing hole. Eric McCabe, of course, talked about that. We talked about the position of this hole. The fact that there are now seats, stadium seating, so to speak, so that people can go out. And as this week continues to unfold, I expect those seats to be filling up as spectators are just watching as the last hole completes. You can, from where you're sitting behind hole 18, in some of the bleachers that have been set up, you can watch the action on 16 and watch the action on 18. And they get some cotton candy out there. Maybe someone's selling some peanuts. I think we've got a winner.
I don't know if we have any cotton candy, but that sounds like a
Let's
great idea.
make it happen. I feel like cotton candy is in one of my riders somewhere.
Is that right?
I should look into that.
I should look into having a rider.
You definitely should. So it's a beautiful day out here. We're looking for more of the same tomorrow. Paul McBeth, I see in our other screen, is just getting into position. He's going to bring himself in the full meter, and that was almost just a sheer disaster by McBeth.
Oh,
I mean, that was way too low.
Yeah, the misfire of all misfires. Going out beyond this hole is not unheard of if people turn it into the water past this cart path, or if someone were to go OB long, I would believe that for sure. But for someone to come up short, that would be extremely rare. And McBeth, I believe this is a force, and he's going to take the big hyzer here. Little hop and a skip after the release as he watches this track toward the green. That is right at that tester range that can be a little scary with this downhill putt, green running away to the OB water, and with an elevated basket. Remember earlier we were watching and we saw Paige Bjerkes land maybe a few feet back from that, and I said I'd bet the house that she was going to lay up. I think I'm going to bet the house that McBeth runs that putt.
Yeah, I think Paul McBeth, the confidence that he has in his putting stroke, you're exactly right. McBeth is sitting at that 8 under, as is McCray, as is Eagle McMahon. So how this hole plays out may determine will determine who we're going to see on that lead card. Simon Lizotte, Kale LaVisca, Ricky Wysocki, Drew Gibson, all also sitting at 8 under par. So if we can see a few birdies, they may secure their spots here on this lead card. And McCray still on that high left side. That might actually bring him a little bit level with the basket. So although the basket is elevated, as he's pushed himself up onto that hillside, it may actually appear to be relatively level from release to basket.
Those are some of the scariest putts at elevated baskets because it feels like, oh, this is just a regular putt. But the consequences are much more steep than just running a regular 35 or 40 footer. Eagle McMahon opting for the forehand approach here. This angle will match the green, so his speed control needs to be perfect.
And it looks like it's gone to the right of the pin. I'm not sure if that pushed all the way over to the water's edge or not. Tough to tell from that angle, and unfortunately our cameraman, as he was in that position he was, just did not catch that with the glare and the sun. AJ Risley, I see, approaching his lie.
And this is a blend Warden at his hand, so this ought to be a smooth, subtle turnover. Looks like AJ's left that just a little bit higher up the hill than he would like to, probably obscured by the trees in between himself and the basket. Once again, tough day for AJ Risley. Didn't quite get much to go his way today.
Another shout out to our only aces that we saw recorded on the day, unless there are other that somehow didn't make it to UDisc, which I don't think is possible. We had 100% coverage there. Colton Montgomery acing hole number 13 during his round, and then we also had Lauren J. Lewis acing hole number 10 during his round. So congratulations to both of them for the hole-in-ones out here at the Country Club.
And we've got lead card implications coming up on these putts. AJ getting aggressive on his putt, and looks like that's traveled out of bounds behind Jonathan Gomez there. McBeth needs this to secure his spot on the lead card tomorrow.
What a beautiful shot here from McBeth. Oh, it needs to sit.
He's missed it high, and that likely means McBeth will not be on lead card tomorrow.
Paul McBeth's PDJ number in the 27,000s. Johnny McCray, I believe, is, I'm going to guess, 90. It's either 95.82 or 98.52.
98.52 is
one of my
correct,
good
yeah.
friends is a little transposed to that in 95.82.
Oh, nice.
So in entering his number for many events, he sometimes showed up as Johnny McCray.
That's right. Oh.
And McCray shows up for the birdie to close out. So definitely securing his spot there. With the birdie, he's at 9 under, and Johnny McCray getting it done here in the opening round. 2 blemishes on the scorecard on 10 and 17. And McCray just proves week after week after week that he has every bit of skill all of our other players do, and he goes out and he performs and gets it done. So impressive. Johnny McCray, for those of you who don't know, is actually eligible to compete in a Grandmaster division. So that is
unbelievable.
50 and above is where he is eligible to compete. And here he is hanging with and beating hundreds or more than 100 people that are older than or younger than him. Just incredible.
It's a good putt to finish A.J. Risley's round. Tough go for him today. We'll look for him to bounce back this week. Now, regardless of if McMahon converts here or, well, McBeth will certainly convert on his par putt, but we are going to have one familiar face and 3 new faces on our lead card tomorrow. Watch Eagles putt and then update that shortly. Oh, and McMahon is off the right side of the chains. That's going to be his 3rd bogey of the day. That's going to drop him to 7 under par and a tie for what looks to be 8th place. Pardon me, 9th place. McBeth is in for par. McMahon is going to drop in for bogey. And that means that only Johnny McCray will remain on our lead card for tomorrow, as we see Joel Freeman is held on at 11 under par. Johnny McCray finishing 9 under par today with 2 bogeys in similar fashion to Joel Freeman. And then in a tie for 3rd place, we've got quite the pileup in 3rd place here. Simon Lizotte, Cale LaVisca, Paul McBeth, Ricky Wysocki, and Drew Gibson all sitting at 8 under par for the day. But because of their low PDGA numbers, Simon Lizotte and Cale LaVisca will get the nod for our lead card tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central.
Just an incredible set of golfers out there as we're going to see this lead card, like you said, Freeman, McCray, Lizotte, and LaVisca. And then on that chase card, which will be doing their fair share of chasing, there's no doubt about that, McBeth, Wysocki, Gibson, and Sexton. So very excited to see that. Eagle McMahon, Chris Dickerson will be rounding out our top 10. What a day of golf, Robert. We were here for the FPO side. We saw Katrina Allen go out and do her thing today. We're going to see all of her shots tomorrow. Again, Katrina Allen sits at that 4 under par. Jessica Weiss at 1 under par. And then rounding out the lead card is Jennifer Allen and Rebecca Cox. They both sit at +2. So looking forward to seeing some great long-distance shots. All 4 of those women have plenty of power. So we'll be treated to that at 9 a.m. tomorrow. And then we also just mentioned our lead card. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll ask you if you have anything else before I close this down.
No, we just thank you guys so much for joining us. We look forward to growing our viewership and growing our gallery throughout the week. And as we share out the links and as you start viewing, if you wouldn't mind liking and sharing that link out so that we can get more eyes on some of the best disc golfers in the world playing at the largest event that we'll see this year.
Not only the largest event this year, the largest event in PDGA history, and the most covered event that we've ever experienced here with all of the live and post-production coverage, thanks to Dynamic Disc and the PDGA and all of the other tremendous supporters and sponsors. So I've got to give another quick shout-out to our cameramen. They hustled around for 2 full rounds out there. That high stress of being live for more than 8 hours of golf. It's exactly that. It's very stressful. So thank you again to Chad and Gary, and also celebrating a birthday today is one of our cameramen in Rick Couchane. So happy birthday to him. I want to thank Johnny V in the production control studio. Thank you for doing everything you're doing there. And for Robert McCall, Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, we're going to see you guys tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Central for our lead card of FPO. We look forward to seeing you then when you step inside the Smashbox.